Bingo, bango, bongo. I don't want to leave the Congo, but I do want to talk about Fallout Episode 4, The Ghouls. Today with me, I have some ferals. Let's start out with Snickerer. How you doing? And what makes you special?
I'm not feral, all right? I have no beef with chickens. We get along perfectly well.
Can't abide a chicken.
Just want to put that out there. Special. I'm gonna go with I feel like I'm pretty charismatic. I think I'm always looking whenever I build a character in Fallout, I've done that like 4 times, but I always put pretty high charisma because I always want to try to talk my way out of a situation without trying to fight. It just happens to be what my character kind of leans toward. It's what my build is, but I think Charisma is my favorite.
Charisma is pretty solid. I'll have to agree with you there. I think my first Fallout playthrough was a Charisma luck build. And Charisma, you can basically convince people to do whatever you want them to do. It's pretty nice. Especially if they're like, no, you got to go do a quest for me. And you're like, well, hear me out.
I like passing like speech checks.
Yeah, right. Like, what if I didn't do that and you just told me the information I want? So, charisma.
New Vegas has a lot of good speech checks to do
Oh,
that
has a
with.
ton of good ones. But okay, TooRissky's here as well. She's in
Yo.
here. What is your special stat?
I think perception, because I'm always like noticing little things here and there, like things catch my eye. And I also like read into things, and I think it's a really useful skill in games because you get to notice things that other people might miss. So
Right, looking
Yeah.
for all the Easter eggs, looking for all the details. Yeah, I need some perception in our Final Fantasy playthrough. I keep standing in all the AoE attacks, but
And you just get lost.
and then I get lost all the time. So I do not have good perception. But all right, Baked Banana, what makes you special, friend?
Strength.
Strength.
Drunk.
I am strong. I move a lot of furniture throughout the day. Just so much furniture.
Just
A lot of
moving
tables.
things.
Always.
Man's just lifting. Is bonk
And-
build in real life?
Sometimes, God gave you 2 hands, so, sometimes you got to move 2 tables because, 1 table in each hand.
Only
Damn.
one? Those are rookie numbers. I need 2 tables per hand, per finger. But okay, strength, cool. Moving stuff around. I'm going with luck. I think luck's my favorite skill for the specials. It's better to be lucky than to be good. It's better to always somehow have things turn out for you. So I've always liked the luck skill more, and I usually do most of my Fallout builds with a luck in mind. Like I did a bonk build, but I did it as a lucky bonk build that was really dumb. So everything just kept going right for him, and I could just beat the crap out of anybody, but no idea what I was saying or doing. So it was pretty fun.
What's the skill that everybody specs out of? I feel like I never spec into endurance. I think I always lower that.
I feel like endurance I usually use as a mid skill. Like even if I'm min-maxing something else, endurance is kind of a medium skill that I would use. Otherwise, like if you want to be an agility perception build over like say a strength build, it just kind of depends on what you're doing. I've pretty much used all of them. They have different perks, but I'd say yeah, endurance is maybe the one I always keep like medium.
I don't even know what it does, except for probably like
Health.
carry.
Well,
Stamina,
within this playthrough, I've been just like
resistances.
in my New Vegas playthrough, I've been spending a lot of like my perks actually like just trying to get them all to like level 10 or level 5.
Just trying to max them all out.
Yep.
Just to make like an even character. I mean, I did that in my Fallout 4 build. It's a lot easier to do it in Fallout 4 than other games. Okay. Well, that's what makes this cruise special. But let's talk about some Fallout Episode 4, The Ghouls. So we jump back into our adventure with Lucy and the Ghoul, and they're walking back through the desert. And this time, they actually are on Sunset Boulevard.
Kept mixing those up.
It's got the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and it's got the stars on the ground, and the Ghoul's kind of like nudging her forward with his, like he's got his gun, and her hands are tied. And there's like a rad roach or something. The rad roaches look so good, but I just
They're so
don't like
gross.
them, right? They're just the worst. But yeah, the Ghoul's still coughing. He still seems like he's like, obviously those drugs that he missed out on, he's really missing out on.
Going through withdrawals.
Exactly. So they start walking, and then you start hearing a guy going like, Roger, my name is Roger. Ah," and he's making like ghoul sounds, and like it sounds like bad, like someone's like freaking out or something. And then they walk up on the medical clinic, and they walk inside, and it's honestly, there's a lot of sand in here. It almost felt like they switched location all of a sudden. I don't know. It just felt like there was too much
But we
sand.
have talked about this before, like in the past, honestly, where it just locations like that's one thing we've kind of noticed. Like locations kind of like instantly vary really quickly.
I mean, I guess that's like TV and movie magic, but like,
I thought it was just because like all the windows were broken.
but that's a lot of sand.
Especially
That's
in the newer Fallouts, it makes sense because, like in Fallout 4, you got like the safe area up north, and then you got like Boston, which is like more crappy, and then you got like the glowing sea down south.
And there's a
And
lot
it's
of
like-
variable in the locations.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this
So-
is the same place that like the same neighborhood that she saw the family that took the poison at the beginning.
So I don't think it is though.
And
Like,
that was filled with sand.
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
So I think it's the same area.
I mean, it's been a couple hundred years. Like sand's gonna find its way into the buildings.
Especially in
Sh-
California.
Okay. So do you think they were just walking through here, or do you think he was going to the medical clinic to see if they had what he needed?
Both.
Yeah, he definitely knew
They
it.
probably had to pass through that area to get to the medical clinic.
Okay. Well, then that makes sense. So they walk up on the medical clinic. They hear the guy going, Roger, Roger. And they go in there, and it's another ghoul. And he's kind of freaking out on the ground, and he's kind of like, Roger. And he's like, hi, how's it going? Like, he's kind of trying to be normal, but he's also like, you can tell he's kind of like going insane. He even says like something like, dang, smoothies can be so unkind. And he's like, I see you got a smoothie of your own. And he's referring to Lucy, who's tied up, right?
Mhm.
So apparently the ghoul knows Roger, and they've met each other before, and they talk about how like they've lived out there a long time, and the ghoul even says like you're going feral pretty much. He's like, yeah, I know, I've been going like a solid 28 years since he started turning, which is kind of interesting. It's like ghouls turning slowly over time kind of makes sense, right? But then doesn't Roger ask him, he's like, hey, do you have any like vials? Like I can pay you back. You know, I'm
Yeah.
good for it. Which is kind of interesting because it's like, that's not how ghouls are made or like how ghouls are sustained in the normal Fallout universe, right? Like how are ghouls made, Banana?
Ghouls are just caused by radiation over being exposed to the outside world over time. There can be like a lot of different variables, but usually it's like, I'm assuming a mix of being exposed to too close to radiation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking like why we haven't seen this is I'm thinking this is like too far in like a lot of ghouls like lifespans maybe where like because like some ghouls like I said are just different, so like some may like not have this side effect right away and like some do.
Okay, so you're saying that maybe that we've passed enough time.
Like a lot of the ghouls we haven't encountered, maybe they just haven't had time to finally like start to lose their mentality.
I'm thinking more about the drug itself, right? Like, so you're saying that maybe it hasn't been enough time that drug hasn't been made yet to maintain their like sanity to prevent them from going feral, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that drug happened after what was the last game? Fallout 4
Well,
was the
I know
last one?
in Fallout 4, Hancock talked about some like serum.
Yeah, because that's how he became a ghoul, which is why this is strange. So there's ghouls that obviously got turned into ghouls by taking a serum, but then there's also lore where, like, if they got just the right amount of radiation, they became a ghoul.
Yeah.
So, like, that kid that was, like, trapped in the refrigerator, he became a ghoul, right? Because he was, like, exposed to just the right amount of radiation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this guy Roger, he's like a newer ghoul, and then like the main guy is like an older ghoul, and they
Yeah, but they don't say, like,
Which to
how
me
old.
also pegs the question
we know.
if like being a ghoul, like who's to say like pretty much like just being out here in this wasteland, like maybe after like you have like lived your life, like maybe like you will turn into a ghoul. Maybe some do. I don't know.
So there's just like enough radiation around that you'll slowly become a ghoul, and then you'll need those vials. So I guess we have a lot of questions, right? So who's turning people into ghouls? It's probably Vault-Tec. Why are they turning them into ghouls for experiments? But like at the same time, does that apply in this universe? Right? Is that what they're going with of how ghouls are created? Or is there also the ghouls that were created with partial radiation exposure? Or is there both?
Probably
Because
both.
like I'd rather them have both because like that makes more sense to everything we've seen so far. But there's definitely something going on here with the drug that's like keeping them from going feral. But unluckily for Roger, he doesn't have any. And he's pretty bad at this point because he's like trying to remind himself of who he is constantly. The ghoul sees this. He says to him, "You remember how good food used to taste?"
Yeah.
And that kind of gets into Roger's head, and he's like, "Yeah, like the Blamco mac and cheese." And the ghoul's like, "Yeah, remember ice cream and apple pie?" And Roger's all like, "Yeah, apple pie." And then he turns to Lucy and he says, "You know, my mom used to," and that's when his brain gets blown out. So the ghoul shoots him when he's like least expecting it. And Lucy immediately freaks out about this, and she's like, "Why'd you do that? He was sick. Like, we could have helped him, yada, yada, yada." And the ghoul kind of ignores that. But I don't know. I think that was kind of a merciful thing for the ghoul to do,
Like to leave him with a happy memory.
right? Like, put him in a happy memory and then put him out of his misery because he knew he was going to go feral.
He seems friendlier towards this ghoul than he has towards any other like human. Like
Yeah.
Ghouls.
there's a connection there.
One thing you will know just as playing Fallout, especially Fallout 3, ghouls are pretty much like just friends among ghouls because like a lot of outsiders don't like ghouls because they're ugly and disgusting looking.
Fellow ghoul
Yeah.
friends.
Well, that's what he said. He said smoothies can be so unkind, right? Like,
So like even in the new world, there's like pretty much like that old like thing with like segregation. It's just a new thing with a
but with
different race.
ghouls, super mutants. And remember, the Brotherhood of Steel is just supposed to just kill those things on sight. So, like, there's some groups out there that are not very friendly to ghouls. But yeah, Lucy is super like, "Why'd you do that?" Like, and then, oh, that's what happens. Then the ghoul flips over Roger. So after he was super nice to him, right, and put him out of his misery, flips over Roger and then starts carving up his back and like cutting Roger his like meat off of Roger.
He
Like,
says something about like some jerky.
Ass jerky.
yeah, he's like, "Ass jerky don't make itself." Like, just like, what?
When he first like cuts the first piece off, he like takes a bite of it and like I'm assuming he's like taking a bite of it and like sucking.
He sucked on his own fingers. He was like sucking the blood off of him. It was gross. It was a gross scene.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate this.
She's like saying, "Stop, don't do that." And he's like, "What was your name again?" And she goes, "Lucy. Lucy McLean." And the ghoul goes, "McLean." Like he knows who she is. Once again, we have characters who know who Lucy is, and she has obviously no idea what's happened. I'm thinking that the overseer, her dad, was out of the vault for a while and did some stuff and is known.
I was actually thinking about this. They say he came from Vault 31,
Mhm.
but what if he didn't actually come from Vault 31 and he came from outside?
Well, wouldn't they be able to like talk to Vault 31 and like do the same exchange that they did like they were doing with Vault 32?
Oh, you have no idea.
Well, Banana, it sounds like you know spoilers, so shush.
Spoilers.
Only because I was looking at information on the web.
Yeah, stop it.
Don't do that.
Well, just because her dad could be like Fallout 3, for instance, your dad, like you really like Amanda, Almada, whatever her name is, but you know who doesn't really like you? The Overseer. The Overseer really hates you. And it's like, just because, you know, they're kind of cool doesn't mean they actually like, yeah, there's like a lot going on that you don't know.
Right, there's history there that the previous
Overseers have
generation...
a lot of knowledge that you just tend to never know because they keep secret.
They've got like an overseer secret manual.
Well, some of them have worked for Vault-Tech. Like, they know about the
Well,
experiment.
I'm assuming like it's like being the president. You pretty much are like, I, as overseer, pledge to never give away any secrets that I have come to learn from being overseer.
At least for some of them, because there's a lot of other vaults where like the overseers voted in from like the crowd, which kind of seems like what Vault 33 is. But obviously, if you're charismatic enough, you could get elected. So the ghoul knows him, and she has no idea who he is. He's working on his ass jerky. She tells him a story about like, you know, there was a great plague of 77, and everybody was like quarantining. People died, including my mother. And my dad dropped 128 pounds. And the ghoul like laughs at her, and she's like, "Why? Why is that funny?" This is kind of interesting. He says, "There's what people say they did and what they really did," which is kind of interesting. Like the ghoul seems to know something, and like Lucy is trying to figure it out. And the ghoul even says, like, "I bet your daddy was the first in line at the cookout." Basically, as soon as somebody started like freaking, as soon as the cannibalism started, your dad probably was like, "I'll eat to survive." And then that's when Lucy says, like, "How do you live like this? Why keep going?" And this sucks for her. She shouldn't have pushed this button because the ghoul comes over and basically says, "Well, one question deserves another. Why am I doing all the work?" And then he hands her the knife and says, "Come on, ass jerky don't make itself." And so then Lucy's like kind of in disbelief, but she takes the knife, walks forward, and then when she goes down to like cut his back, that's when we get boom, title screen, fallout, blood over the text.
But what I was confused about or I guess not confused, but Lucy doesn't even refuse. She takes the knife and does it.
Well, I mean, she already cut off somebody's head.
Yeah.
So carving up some ass jerky is, the next logical step.
Right?
But this is just more, right? Like this is just another thing that Lucy has to do to survive. And she's starting to see that, and she's starting to do more and more. And I feel like this episode lends itself to her changing.
Yeah, we're starting to see her character arc.
Like she needs to understand that like you do what you must to survive in the wasteland, even eating a friend. And that's kind of what the ghoul's teaching her by like chopping up Roger and making ass jerky. He's like basically like, you gotta live and you gotta do these things. And it's just kind of an interesting thing. He's like enjoying shoving it in her face that she has no idea what's going on.
But at the same time, she's learning.
Yeah. No, she's definitely picking
I
it up.
think it's because like also like feral ghouls eat like feral ghouls, or like ghouls eat ghouls in a weird world.
And ghouls eat anything, probably.
Yeah, I was wondering, is this like a typical, like, is cannibalism pretty prevalent amongst everybody, or is that just a ghoul
Not
thing?
really. I mean,
Eh,
people kind of frown upon you if you do it.
it's a yes and no thing. It depends on what, like if you're with a bunch of raiders, obviously no one gives a crap. But then there's also raider groups that do a lot more cannibalism, and they're definitely like, are the fiends the ones that eat people? I know there's like there's a group. I remember this quest in Fallout
The
3.
White Glove Society.
The White Glove Society, right? They eat people. But there's also in Fallout 3, there's a house that you can go into where there's this
Cannibal
dude and he's
Johnson's?
got like, well, yeah, there's cannibal. That's in New Vegas. But in Fallout 3, there's this guy. I can't remember his name, but he's got like 3 chicks with him. And if you go into his house, they're cannibals in there. And he's got like a bunch of like bodies strung up and stuff. And it's not the greatest. But like cannibalism has been in every single game. And I think it's just part of the wasteland.
Pickman's Gallery too.
Yeah, I think that's the one I'm talking about, is the Pickman's Gallery. So, is it prevalent? Yes. Is it frowned upon? Yes. Will people do anything to survive?
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Have I played as a cannibal character in New Vegas before? Yes.
Don't answer that.
Yes. Listen, ass jerky don't make itself, okay? But yeah, so that's the ghoul and Lucy,
Hold up
and they're
them
making
blood
some jerky.
sausages.
Ugh. All right, next scene opens up, and we're back in Vault 33, and we got some campaign posters on the walls. And it looks like Reg and Woody are going for Overseer, and they're trying to get votes. This is really funny, because isn't this reminiscent of a Vault in New Vegas, Banana?
Yeah, because they're hosting like an election.
And I'm pretty sure the election did not go well in that Vault. Dab Ninja knows all the Vault numbers.
It's Vault 30.
7? I know, I'm completely wrong. But so there's the Vault in New Vegas where there was a vote, and you kind of are walking in there after everything's gone down, and it doesn't look like things went well, if I remember correctly. Or is that the one where you get, or am I mixing that with the one where you get voted? Oh my gosh, do you remember the Vault where you basically get voted to go down and like ascend or whatever they say, and you actually go down there and you sit in the chair and
it,
they
like,
just kill
kills
you?
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Which one was that? But that was like a
Well-
whole voting thing.
That's the one where they had to like vote for an overseer.
Was it the same one? And so like the overseer that they were picking, like, oh, that's because the overseer served a couple of years and then they had to go down there and they had to vote for a new one. And they've been never seeing the overseers again. And they thought they just like went somewhere else, but they were actually going down there and getting killed. So like, I don't like voting in in the vaults because like you have no idea what it's leading to. But we opened up this scene in Vault 33 and they're having a vote because they got to figure out who to replace McLean for overseer. So you've got vote Reg, what is his name? Reg McPhee
McPhee.
for
McPhee.
overseer, and work with Woody, overseer of the future. So those two guys are kind of competing. And then the scene pans to actually both those guys, Woody and Reg, and they're talking and they're looking at a prisoner through like one of the vault windows or whatever. And the prisoner's like kind of groggy. He's got one of those like dog cone mask things on. Like he's been
Like a safety cone?
Yeah, like a safety cone so he doesn't bite people or something. So they're already treating him fantastically, right? And they compliment each other on their campaign posters. So they're like still like buddies, but like competing. It's like this weird thing because everybody's super nice in this vault.
And they're
But-
trying to be like picture perfect too. Like they're like posing that way and like standing all like
Like their
I
mannerisms.
am overseer. Yes. Yeah.
So they're like preening almost, like trying to like
Faces the camera
outlooky.
somewhere.
I look like an overseer. No, I look like an overseer. But they're basically the Reg asks Woody is like, how's your interrogation going of this guy? Or not interrogation, with like rehabilitation. And Woody's like, I asked him all sorts of questions, like who he is, who he works for, if he knows who captured Overseer McLean, what are their organizing principles, if any, they operate under. And he's like, nothing, huh? And Reg is like, well, they've had like 200 years without any contact. Like he obviously has seen some terrible things. Like the evolution of the species is bad. And the raider starts like wakes up and starts yanking on his mask to get the stupid cone off and freaking out. And they're like, hey, sir, please stop. You're going to injure yourself. And the Raiders basically like, fuck you guys, like yelling at him. And Woody's like, well, we're just going to have to trank him again. And Reg is like, it's for his own safety. We'll try again tomorrow. It's like, they just put a dog cone on this poor guy and then like keep tranking him over and over again.
Well, have you no? If you think of that mentality, that's kind of how Vault train you. It's like they're training him like a dog.
Right? Like they're training him
Huh.
to be a vault dweller, but they don't know how to do that.
If we keep sedating him and we keep hitting him back, maybe he'll want to try again tomorrow and ready to obey.
Right? It's just some terrible, terrible training methods of this raider to try and rehabilitate him.
They're gonna break down him and make him go mentally insane.
Right? Which, yeah, I don't think it's gonna work. I think they're just gonna break him, and then eventually the Raiders are gonna get out, and there's gonna be another battle or something.
If I was the
Well-
Raider, I'd just be like, yeah, dude, I totally agree. I'm totally 100% normal. I'm good.
Right.
I'm sorry. And then I'd just get out.
It worked before. They literally walked into the vault and were like, "Yeah, we're all chill. I know we smell and like are full of radiation and
Fair
are
enough.
kinda
Eating
gross,
with knives.
right? Like, but we're good. Like, don't worry about it."
Well, and their comment about the like what organizing principle, if any, they operate under. It's like they just don't understand these people. Like they're so mentally different than
Oh,
the
yeah.
raiders upstairs that they can't comprehend that these people don't like how messed up they are. They still
They
think
have
can,
this like book fantasy ideology of how like the world works because like they don't see how the rest of the world works, but they have really is book knowledge to pass on, right?
And they've only been raised in that one environment,
Yeah.
right? It's supposed to be a very optimistic, happy, everybody help each other, try and be your best environment. The Wasteland is not that.
No.
The Wasteland
Is not according to book.
So we've got these two dummies competing for for overseer, right? And it ends that scene, and then we move over to Norm. And Norm's sitting there, and he's looking kind of sad. He's looking at like a picture of his dad, and he misses him, right? Because his dad was kind of like the stability. And Betty walks up, who is like the third kind of leader of the council. And she gives him some pie, says, "What's going on? How you doing?" And she's like, "I was there when you were a little kid. I remember you. You sure liked pie that day." Because Norm's not like eating his pie because he's kind of, upset that, his dad's gone and the two idiots are competing for overseer. And then Norm's just basically blunt about it. And he says, "I know why you came here to talk to me. You came here to talk to me because of what I said at the council meeting where I challenged it and said basically we should kill them." And she's like, "Well, yeah, that's basically why I'm here." And she's like, "I get it. Your dad's gone, but people are hurting and don't know what to do. They've lost their leader. We've got these two guys competing," because she saw how bad that went at the council meeting, right? She understands. So do we feel like she's kind of pushing Norm here maybe to like take charge? Because she's trying to be like, "Hey, people are hurting. Like, you're the last McLean here. Your dad's gone. you know, Maybe make some better decisions."
I kind of thought that, but then afterwards, how things like kind of played out, I kind of like reverted my statement.
You don't think so? You don't think she wants Norm to be in charge?
I think she's being manipulative.
Yeah, that's kind of more or less like what I think. At first, I kind of agreed, but then like as I was watching and then I was just like kind of revert my statement.
Well, I honestly still think that even though this conversation basically goes to, he tells her that, like, "Hey, you may think that a McLean should be in charge, but like I hid during the fight and like my sister protected me." That's when Betty was like, "Well, does that make you angry?" He's like, "Why does that even matter?" Because he's very obviously he wants to kill these guys, right? He's kind of angry that everything's been thrown into the, he's in favor of killing the Raiders. So like you could definitely see the anger, and she basically says like regular boys, when they get angry they can get over it, but when clever boys like you are angry, I'm glad you haven't seen what could happen. She's implying she's like seen clever people get mad and do things. She's obviously had a lot more history here too. She's been around through that famine. She knows about McLean, like she's obviously has way more knowledge than him. I don't know. I felt like she tells him to tread lightly and not stir up trouble, but I definitely feel like she was pushing him to be like, "Hey, you have a voice here and you could probably," I don't think she's pushing him to be like kill the Raiders, but I think she's trying to, like you said, I guess, be manipulative and get him to do what she wants, which would be take charge and kind of run it how his dad ran it.
Yeah, well, why else would she come over and be like, "You're angry," and then
But I don't think okay, so like his dad may run it, sure. In that vault, there's still a council, so there's like he may be overseer, but their rule is the final rule.
Well, we don't know that. We honestly don't know that. Like, we don't know if the council can counter him or anything, or if the council's just there to assist and help him. What were you saying though, Nick, before?
oh, well, like she just comes over and was like, "Oh, you're angry. Why are you angry?" Like, and then tells him to like tread light. It just seemed like she was poking him, and then it was like, "Oh, well, don't do anything stupid."
Yeah.
It just felt really.
That's why I think there was more to it though. I think she's trying to push him where she wants him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I was also kind of thinking that like the whole Fallout story here is your character arc. What's the wasteland gonna make you?
Mm-hmm.
The changes that are going through all these characters, and Norm is another character that we've been following, so he's got to have some sort of arc too. So maybe he's got to go from the kid who plays around on his Pip-Boy during meetings to somebody who's going to have to step up and take charge.
Make some decisions, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Back with Lucy and the Ghoul. So they're walking through blown up neighborhood, and the Ghoul's like still coughing, and you can tell Lucy's just hasn't had any water for a hot minute. She looks like she's just super parched.
Probably hungry too, though.
Right? Well, they've got ass jerky now because you can see it on the Ghoul's backpack. He's got the ass jerky hanging out to dry, which is just so gross. But they basically are walking up and they see like a little like metal tin thing with some water in it. And her Pip-Boy just starts going off. Just the rad meter is just ticking.
Flying off the radar.
Right. And she's looking at the water, and the Ghoul's like refilling his canteen in it and drinking it and pouring it over himself. Just being the worst. Because he knows he can touch it and she can't, right? Finally, she relents and she goes and she starts gulping up that radiation water, and like that's when the Ghoul's like, now you're getting it. And it's oh my gosh, basically it's just immediately this whole episode. I feel like so far Lucy has been being just pushed and pushed. What will she do to survive? And now she's reading radiation water.
I think he's like teaching her like hard lessons on just like life.
Right? Life in the wasteland.
Yeah.
Right?
Like it's
So
all not like you said earlier. It's all not like sunshine and like lollipops and rainbows. It's crap, crap, and crap.
yeah, it just keeps getting worse. Like nothing is good here. It's all pretty bad. So
Also, she probably reminds him of like the whole Vault Boy, like goody two shoes, thumbs up personality, and he doesn't like that already. So it's like he's trying to get her out of that kind of mentality.
yeah,
Into like a
like
fallout.
he's been worn down over time, and he's like, "You'll become me eventually." Basically, right? He's like, "This is like start drinking water, start eating ass jerky, start doing hard things because this is life in the wasteland." So she drank the water, and she does not have any rad away. So she's got some rads in her all of a sudden. Oh, this is one of the best lines right here, where Lucy turns to the Ghoul while they're drinking the water because he's rubbing it in, right? And she goes, "What are you?" And this is when the Ghoul says, "Oh, I'm you, sweetie. Just give it a little time." And then the Ghoul starts having a coughing attack and falls over. But the line was pretty good, where he was like, "You're gonna be me eventually." So he's coughed and he's like falling over. She's like, "Dude, okay, this is my chance," and takes off. Just starts running. And this is why the leash thing's kind of confusing, because he had it before and then he took it away and then she was just tied up so she could run from him. And she runs around like the corner and then she just stops dead. And it shows us what she's looking at. And it's this gigantic hole in the ground, basically where in LA one of the bombs dropped.
Ground
it was
zero.
Yeah, it was like a ground zero, which you think there'd be more radiation there. But either way, it was pretty cool to see that and to see that hole. They have a couple of those in the different Fallout games. Like in Fallout 4, one of the towns got hit by a bomb, and you can actually go there, and like down in the bottom is like a bunch of radiation water with a bunch of feral ghouls running around in it. I can't remember what that town's called, but there's that. And then there's also like in Fallout 3, there's Megaton, where there's a bomb in the middle of town that didn't detonate, and they actually like build their city around it. It's kind of interesting.
And apparently that bomb has a Vault Tech logo on it.
Yeah, so like maybe they did it on purpose to make it not blow up, but I don't know. So there's several like it's kind of cool to just see the hole and kind of a reference back to the game and everything to see the damage that those bombs would do. But yeah, so she stops and then a lasso comes over her head, snags her and rips her off her feet. The Ghoul's caught up. He got over his coughing, and of course we've seen him with his lasso before, so we know he could do it.
Little call out to his cowboy days.
Yeah, back into his cowboy days. And he stands over her, like flips her over, and he's like holding her face. And she actually like turns and bites his finger off, which is just like, damn. And he says, "There you are, you little killer." This is like something pretty interesting. Like, this is another lesson immediately taught. He literally straightens one of her fingers. Like, it doesn't seem to phase him at all. Like, he didn't even feel his finger get ripped off, apparently.
When she bites his finger off, his face like drops, but it's not like in pain. It's more like almost he's surprised, but
like surprised that she would do something so savage.
He like knew that she would come to that eventually, but he just like maybe he just didn't expect that it would come so soon. Because that's when he says like, "There you are, little killer." Like he knew that it was going to come out eventually, but like I don't know.
Right? Like with the water.
She like took to it faster than he thought.
Yeah, like she drank some radiation water and all of a sudden she's biting off fingers. But it's pretty brutal what he does to her. Basically, the golden rule, right? So to teach her this lesson, he grabs her hand, straightens her finger,
and she starts screaming.
A knife. She doesn't even scream.
I thought
she does a little bit. She does like some little yelps, I guess, but it's not like I don't know. She doesn't seem like she's in as much
like
pain as she should be.
more like, please don't cut off my finger, and he's just like cuts off her finger.
Like more in shock, probably.
That'll be the shock. Yep.
And he like
Yeah.
saws around the finger to like get it all the way off. Like, could you imagine? That's gotta hurt so much that he's like just cutting around the meat and then pops the bone off. Like, just then her finger's gone. And she's
you
just
think-
kind of stunned and in
Do you think
shock.
she expected it though? Because she's been like this golden rule thing keeps coming up between
She did
them.
not expect that. She definitely is like pushed the limits of this guy, but she still doesn't believe that someone would do something so cruel and
Even though
mean.
she just did it, like
Self-defense.
she knows the golden rule, so she would have to expect that he would do something in return.
I think it's more like it finally came out of her, like we're saying, like there's the little killer, right? Like I don't think she just immediately was like bit his finger off, right? There was no hesitation. It was just a natural reaction, an animal instinct that she's all of a sudden, the wasteland's been beaten on her and it finally popped out and she like rips the finger
She's
off.
finally snapped.
She
Fight or
snapped a little
flight.
bit, right? It was the fight or flight. She snapped a little bit and bit his finger off, which is why the ghoul's like, oh, okay. Well, then I'll take your finger back because you basically just did my rules to me, and then I'll show you the golden rule back to you in the wasteland. You're going to love this. And cuts her finger off. And he says, now that right there is the closest thing we've had to an honest exchange so far. And he like holds the finger to her face, drops it, and they keep walking. And then we're back in Vault 33. So no Maximus so far. Kind of interesting. We're going back and forth between Lucy and just the Vault. And those are the two stories we're telling. But
We're doing a lot more character building this time with these guys.
Tons of character
These
building. I feel
Vaulties.
like Lucy and Norm are kind of the main focus of this episode. And even the Ghoul a little bit. But definitely building up the McLean.
That's okay, because like I'm actually like
McLean
really curious
mystery.
about like what's going on in the
McLean.
vault.
Right? I
Yeah,
want to know
the
what the
vault
vault experiment is on this vault.
Yeah. Also, I liked like the back and forth between like kind of the savagery happening up in the wasteland, and then back down to the vault where everybody's all nice.
Like the detective work.
Right? And they're having a vote. There's elections. There's democracy.
Nice and
They're
orderly.
tranking raiders. They're eating pie.
Lucy's getting her finger cut off.
A lot more deception going on in the vault.
Yeah, no, everything's pretty clean out on the wasteland. You know where you stand. But we're back in Vault 33. We're with Chet this time, our doorman. And he's looking depressed. And he's he's struggling with his identity. And he hears a knock at the door, and it's Steph, the pregnant lady with the eye patch. And this conversation is just so hilarious because she's like, I guess I just want to stop by, see how you're doing. And Chet's like, not great. First I lost Lucy, then I lost my job. And she's like, yeah. And then he's like, so how are you handling the death of the father of your unborn baby?
Just lays it out there.
And she's like, same. Like, not handling it well. So it's just kind of weird. Like, the vault still seems like it's all in shock. And so these awkward conversations with these optimistic people is just kind of like overly shock. Like they don't know how to process what happened to them.
I just think they're weird. I think
It's
it's
just
I was
super
gonna
awkward.
say, like someone dies and it's like, so how's the death going for you? It's like, oh, it's just fantastic.
No, not great.
Seems casual.
Right.
Like it happens often.
Right? Like they just this is a bummer.
This is normal.
But I think that it's so not normal that they are in shock. But who knows? Maybe they get raided by raiders because they knew about them before. So maybe people have freaked out before on them. But so she actually comes over. Steph came over to his place. She's like, I've got these old things of my ex-husband, of my dead husband, and I thought you might want them. Chet's like, okay, yeah, sure, come in. And she's talking about he was such a good man. And Chet even says that he's like, he was such a good man. And she's like, you think so? And Chet's like, I mean, what can you say? He took great care of his shoes. It just continues to be awkward. And Steph was like, yeah, he really liked his shoe maintenance.
One of the few things he truly loved.
He truly loved.
Was that his job? Was he like a shoe repair guy?
I don't know. It's
Kinda
just
guessing
'cause
as much, but
yeah, because she said like, oh, you'd get him talking about shoe maintenance, and he'd be
so that
talking
was
about
his,
it for hours.
so that
What
was
did
like his like job. He was the shoe maintenance. It's just kind of weird to see the process this conversation. It's funny because she even says like those monsters took him away from me. Like she's obviously not wanting to help out these people and try and get them to become
Well,
members of the vault.
would you want to help someone out who's like, yeah, you know those guys who killed your husband? Yeah, it's
Right.
like I think we should let them live with us. It's like, you see, I got a problem with that.
Right? And I mean that's what Chet says. He's like, "Yeah, hate those guys." Like, it's still awkward, Chet. But it definitely seems like Steph does want like revenge here. Like she's kind of pissed at them. She liked Norm before from what Norm was saying, but then she's like, "Listen, it would mean a lot if you took Bert's shoes and stuff." And like the shoes are definitely too small for Chet because Chet's like a really tall dude, and like Bert was not a really tall dude. It's like they're not gonna fit him at all, but she's like giving him the shoes. And then she pulls out a Vault Tech like scarf and like cardigan and like starts putting them on Chet. Then she stands back and she actually calls Chet Bert. Like she is not processing this whole thing very well. And poor Chet is like stuck in the middle of this. She's like looking for some connection, giving him shoes, dressing him up, calling him Bert, and then she like starts crying and hugging him. And then she starts leaning into him and kissing him a little bit. And like Chet's like, okay, yeah, this I could do this. And he starts like to like he leans into it. He starts to get undressed, and Steph's like, no, 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 no. She's like, could you keep it on a while we? And Chet's like, oh yeah, of course. I'm sorry. What was I thinking? Like, what was I thinking? Of course, I should keep on your dead husband's clothing while you come on to me.
not awkward.
Sir, it's weird.
It's so awkward. They're so weird and so cringe. And she like basically pushes him back and like starts straddling him. And then he's like, "Oh wow, you're so like wet," and it like looks in pain all of a sudden. And she steps away from Chet, like holding her pregnant belly. And then she screams, leans over, and just her water breaks. And it is like a lot.
Or Chet.
Yeah. Such a sad situation for Chet, and
My homie's like, I don't even know what to do anymore.
right, and he's like, I did not sign up for this.
Right? Like the poor guy basically gets blue balled in the strangest turn of events. And
It's like, my husband's dead. You're the father. Congratulations. We're married. And it's like, what?
yeah,
And like when Steph gives him the shoes and they're like clearly too small for him, it's like she's asking him to literally and figuratively step into Bert's shoes, and now he's like helping her birth the baby, and it's
Right?
like awkward, and he's like, I cannot fit in these shoes.
But he was into it for a minute.
Yeah.
And that was the weird part. Like the whole thing's just so just your
Yes,
classic
I am Bert.
dramatic, wacky Fallout style. Yeah, he says like, "Yes, I am Bert. I am Groot."
I am Groot.
But yeah, Steph's having a baby in Chet's apartment.
Chet's not having a good time.
No, he really isn't. And now we're back with Lucy and the Ghoul again. Like, basically, Vault 33, Lucy. Vault 33, Vault 33, Lucy. Galt, the Ghoul 33, Lucy. But anyway, so we're back with Lucy and the Ghoul. And they actually walk up to a super duper mart. And when last episode we were like, where do we think they're gonna go to get their drugs? And they
You
were like
guys
basically
totally called it.
the super duper mart.
And then just like, oh, we're going to the super duper mart for those.
Which you can find super duper marts in the games. They're basically just, grocery stores that got bombed out, but there's always something to do in one of them. Loot to get, story to uncover. But yeah, they're walking through the super duper mart parking lot. There's skeletons around, and there's a speaker box outside out front of the mart. And the Ghoul presses it, and he's all like, hey, 2-month vials in exchange for 1 female mint condition. Near mint condition, because he looks at her finger and realizes, well, she had a finger, but obviously we got that out. So near mint condition. And that's when the attendant on the other end, whoever's on the other end of this, says like, it'll require a physical evaluation. Please send her in. Lucy looks at the ghoul and is like, dude, what do you mean? What's in there? And the ghoul's like, you're gonna find out. Start going. And she's like, you're selling me? Like, basically, she's just realizing I'm being sold into slavery. And Ghoul's like, listen, you got problems out here too? And he basically pulls her gun and says, you should probably just try your luck behind that door. He kind of shoves her and pushes her towards going in, and she reluctantly goes in because she doesn't want to get shot in the back of the head. And once she goes inside, then the ghoul starts wheezing really bad, like really bad this time, and basically collapses and passes out outside the super duper market.
So he was just holding it together while she was there, just acting tough, and then he like.
Right, as soon as he sold her, he just collapses.
Right, like you couldn't hold it in anymore. And now that his like the person that would maybe mess with him or kill him or take his stuff or turn the tables on him, his one piece of leverage for the vials he needs is gone. He like lets go and just faints.
I mean, what was his plan? Like, if he passes out, then what I was thinking is that even if she goes in and they send the vials out, he still has to administer the vials himself. Like, and he's kind of laying on the ground.
He's just
I mean,
resting,
yeah, but
guess.
once he has his seizure episode and it comes back to it, he'll be able to just trank himself up and he'll be good as new.
If he comes back from it, that's what I'm saying.
You have to have a lot of like episodes, I'm assuming, before there's like no hope, because he shot that ghoul. I'm assuming he kind of knows when there's like no more hope for you.
Probably when you keep saying your name.
Because he'd been turning for 28 years.
Oh,
But-
you mean like before he becomes feral? It's gonna get more close.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm assuming you probably just start with like light seizures, but then as it gets like worse, you probably get like more like episodes of like
Roger.
random things.
My name is Roger.
Yep. Kind of
Ghoul.
thing.
My name is Ghoul.
Yeah, right. My name is Ghoul.
Howard Cooper.
My name is Howard Cooper. Howard. But yeah, so he faints. And then it flashes to with Lucy, and we get to see what she sees. She basically walks in, and it's like a wrecked supermarket. There's like a weird kid playground. There's like a merry-go-round thing. It's like very bright painted walls. There's wires. And then there's a Mr. Handy robot, which honestly, I think they did such a good job on these Mr. Handy robots. Like, everyone we've seen so far has looked so good. And this one is voiced by the perfect voice actor for it, Matt Berry. And his name is the name of the Mr. Handy is Snip Snip. And Lucy, when the robot starts coming up to her, says, "What the fudge?" And he goes, "Fudge? There's no fudge here. Only a General Atomics International Mark IV. That's what I am. You seem to be a woman." It's just, I don't know. Matt Berry, I don't know if you guys have watched What We Do in the Shadows, but
So
Matt
good.
Berry is probably one of my favorite comedian
He plays
actors.
Laszlo.
He's Laszlo. New York City. Yeah, no, he's so funny. And it works perfect for it. It sounds like Codsworth, but maybe a little bit more edgy. I don't know. But yeah, so he seems to be nice to her, though. And Lucy is like, "Hey, my name's Lucy. My dad's been taken. I've been kidnapped." She's kind of still a little bit hysterical almost.
Like, maybe he's willing to help me.
Right? Like, right? Can you help me, please? My kidnapper's out back, and like he's terrible. And then Snip Snip notices that she doesn't have a finger, and he's like, "Oh no, that won't do at all." And he's like, "Follow me." And so then he's like, "Sorry for the mess. Time flies by." He's basically like, he's temporal sensors went out during the Great War, so he hasn't been able to tell time, and he hasn't cleaned anything, and he thinks
like,
that like it's been
That
a
must
week
have
or
been a
so.
week ago at least.
Which is
Right,
funny
like-
because CODs, almost every single Atomictron's temporal sensors like go out after the bombs because they're meant to clean like that, like
Mhm.
Codsworth
on a
but,
regular basis, right?
But you don't see Codsworth like. I mean, his worked for a while because he was cleaning for a while, but then like after a while they kind of stopped working.
Well, arguably that house is the cleanest out of all the houses in Sanctuary, though.
Honestly,
Everything else is very much trashed. And then there's the one house with the like setup of
a computer.
tables and stuff, like a little like living room fort that they built full of rad roaches, so it didn't really work. But
So, do you think she knows what a Mr. Handy is? Because in Fallout 3, you have one in the vault, but I don't know if they have one.
well, that's
mean,
the question, right?
She might know because there's books from pre-war that teach them a lot of knowledge. It's like they
Yeah.
might know because yeah.
But she says what the fudge like she's never seen one before. That's the only confusing part about this whole thing.
Good
Is when
point.
she first sees the Mr. Handy, she's like, "What the fudge?" Which, funny enough, she doesn't swear, right? She's still using like other words. So it's
One a small attention to detail I really liked about the Mr. Handy robot was I really liked that they did the robot's eyes with like Nixie tubes.
right where they like shoot, shoot, and they had him at like different heights, and like it just looked natural. It didn't look
It
like they were
looked
dangling
good.
him from like a string or anything. I really wonder. We got to watch those behind the scenes because like I really wonder what they were
Like, was
doing.
he CGI or was he on? Did
He seems
they
like there was enough of
put
him
like a
there.
cart? Is he an actual robot that's
Just
remote
on a shopping
controlled?
cart.
And then they put him on like almost like the IV stand wheel thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Put him on some sort of stand like that and wheel him around, and then just edit that part out later. But otherwise, he's
Possibly.
like remote control functioned or all
I mean, he
CGI.
looks pretty CGI'd, but
Really?
I mean, it's got to be some sort of blend. Like, it looks too smooth to be like a realistic prop to me, but it's
Really?
definitely some sort of like
Like they almost did
prop
too good a
base.
job.
And then, yeah.
So I
It's
wonder
like,
if it's just like a green ball with green arms or something.
yeah, like a giant
And
octopus.
then they can, yeah, like an octopus or something. And they can just kind of make it look. I don't know. I really want to find out. I mean, they built the whole power armor, right? So, and they have Mr. Handy. They'd only have to build like one or two, and they could utilize them in multiple scenes, obviously. But yeah, the Mr. Handy Snip Snip is guiding her, and she's kind of talking to him and being like, "Hey, this is terrible. This is what happened." He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll fix you up." And then he like brings her into this office and has her sit down on a gurney. And then he opens up a drawer, and there's like a bunch of like fingers in the drawer, and he's like moving through all the fingers and like trying to be like, which one will work, which one will work. There's no preservatives in there. They're just fingers sitting in a drawer. They look like a bunch of rotten, gross fingers.
I kind of thought that was slight maybe Easter egg because then I think for the Legion you sell the NCR's fingers when you work for them.
I thought it was ears.
I know you sell in one of the games you sell fingers. I think it might be 3.
I think you're right though. Like that sounds familiar that they like gather up fingers and you can like sell them and stuff, which is gross to think about. Cause like so many times in the Fallout games, you're carrying around body parts.
But if you think about it, people probably need some limbs.
Right? Right? It's just a weird situation.
There's a
And
market for these things.
there's a market for these things.
They had a leg just sitting around Ma June's place, so
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah, people lose limbs. It's a normal thing.
and
So
those
he
people are
finds
collecting teeth.
yeah, selling their
We
teeth,
buy
right?
teeth.
He actually pulls a finger out, and the finger he picks just looks so disgusting. It looks black and like rotten, and he basically is like,
Gross.
"Hold out your finger, you'll feel a little sting." He then solders on the new finger, and it works like perfectly. It's just so weird. She goes on to explain. She's like, "A big fish ate my head, and I need to go back to my dad." And it really just kind of sounds like she's now a
She
crazy
sounds
wastelander,
crazy. A big
right?
fish ate my head. What do you mean? Your head's on your shoulders?
Right? And I need to get back to my dad. She's just saying weird stuff. She seems a little in shock, right? Like she's not processing. She seems a little bit hectic here, and she's just saying things to the robot. He even says something like, "Do you want cotton or synthetic cotton blend or whatever?" And this was a weird thing. She's like very excited about the cotton. I didn't really understand that. Or is she just more like surprised someone was being kind to her about like, "I'll give you
No,
cotton"?
like I think she was more surprised that they actually had like cotton in the wasteland still.
Do they not have cotton in the vaults?
No, they got cotton in the vaults, but I'm assuming up in the wasteland because you don't have animals and stuff like that. That stuff's a lot more harder to get your hands on.
I think she knew about cotton from. I thought they didn't have cotton in the vaults. I thought that was like a crop they couldn't.
I know what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm not sure. She just seemed like maybe it was because he was kind and offering her something soft, and like that it would be maybe she just was weirded out that he was being nice and she did not suspect that, or I don't know. Something
to me,
like
it
that.
made it seem like it was some sort of a commodity.
Yeah.
Whether in the vault, wasteland, whatever. It seemed like a commodity of some sort.
Like he got caught in. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so then they have this conversation. Snip Snip's like, you seem unhappy. And she's like, well, yeah, the guy that kidnapped me was really mean. I tried to explain to him the golden rule, and then he made me drink some from radiation water that I'm pretty sure was like animal pee. And Snip Snip's just like, that is interesting. And she's like, and I thought you guys were selling, like I was basically being sold to be a sex slave. And Snip Snip's like, what? That's a disgusting idea. And Lucy's like, yeah, haha. And Snip Snip's like, I'm simply going to harvest your organs. And Lucy's like, what?
Huh?
And that's when Snip Snip hits her with the trank and she falls asleep. He's like, no, you're not a sex slave. We're just going to harvest your organs.
Which I don't understand why he would then put the finger back on her if they're gonna harvest the organs.
Well, because she wasn't in mint condition, and obviously this Mr. Handy has a few screw looses.
I'm
Screws
assuming
loose.
I'm assuming after they sell the organs, they probably use your like body for something else.
Well, that's what I have so many questions on this because I'm like, you're harvesting organs. Obviously, he's keeping the fingers. Obviously, the quality of organs and body parts doesn't need to be too high. They have something that can make up for that. Like maybe when you put on a new finger and then stim pack, it'll like regenerate the tissue or something. I don't know. It was just a weird scene because someone does one nice thing for Lucy and she immediately feels like she's safe and like everything's fine. But that's not the wasteland. The wasteland is not that way. If someone's being nice to you, there's something else going on. And when she gets tranked, she finds out that just because they're nice, it
It was
doesn't
all a
mean
lie.
it was all a lie.
Can't trust nobody in the wasteland, Lucy. No.
And back to Vault 33 again. So we got Norm, and he's like doing his job. He's bringing his dessert tray down to the raiders. And the lady that's working there, the secretary, is like, oh, are they getting all the Jell-O cake? And Norm's like, yep, those are my orders. She's all like, I wonder what your dad would say about this. And Norm was like, well, he'd probably be handing him the cake himself. And she's like, yeah. Like, basically, like, you know, the last overseer, the McLean guy is pretty great, pretty nice guy, a good leader, right? And she's eyeballing that Jell-O, though. And Norm's like, do you just want the Jell-O? Like, I don't have to give this to the Raiders. And Veronica's like, yeah, I want that Jell-O. And Norm's like, all right, nobody's going to know. Go ahead and take it. And she's like, sweet, I'm going to go put this Jell-O in my fridge. And she takes the cart
And it looks like
and
it's
leaves.
like half eaten.
Well,
Like
it
it
definitely
looks like
there was
half
a
a
party.
cake with
Yeah, leftovers.
2 Jell-O molds just kind of like slapped on there. It looks like just a tray of leftovers.
I do like that Jell-O cake is just cake with Jell-O on top.
Right.
I'd still eat it.
It looked pretty good, actually. Just sugar on some sugar.
Yeah.
I'd have the Jell-O in the middle.
So, I also
That
liked
is
that
good.
Norm was like nice here, right? Like Norm is nice to the other people, even though he's like causing discomfort and everything for everybody and
He just
discontent.
doesn't like the overseer or like the council people, but he doesn't hate the other vault dwellers.
Well, it's not even that he doesn't like the council people. It's that he disagrees with the decisions they're making because he's like, these guys killed our people. Why are we considering fixing them? We should either kill them or get rid of them somehow, right? Like, why are we even doing what we're doing? There's no point. It's not going to happen. He truly thinks that they're beyond saving. And he even like says that, like he goes to close the slide that he was giving them the Jell-O in, and the dude like stops him from sliding it, and he says, "What are you looking at?" And Norm says, "A murderer in a cage, paying the price for what you did. Right? You killed those innocent people in Vault 32." So he's not even talking about his vault really. He's talking about Vault 32 as well, right? And the prisoner says, like, "Listen, I don't know what those people in Vault 32 were up to, but it was anything but innocent." And that's when Norm's curiosity is kind of piqued. Like, the Raiders implying that Vault 32 had something going on and that it wasn't a good thing and that they weren't just like struggling, they were doing some bad stuff. or something that wasn't innocent, right?
Like it was already messed up before they got there.
Exactly. Like the raiders weren't the problem there.
I thought Norm had poisoned the cake and was giving it to them. That was my first like.
And then he lets the lady take it.
Yeah, and then
I kind of
Yeah.
thought he had some like ulterior motives because usually when people are like, "Those were my orders," go ahead and ask the man in charge, and you can question his order, sort of a thing. So I almost got like ulterior motive vibes from that, but then nothing happened, and like I want to think that Norm is a good guy, and he doesn't have any like really detrimental things that are going to affect other people.
You're
So
right, though, right? Like, 'cause she complained that he was being clever and saying things that made people uncomfortable. And from him being like, yeah, I have to give this jello cake to the Raiders, and he knows Veronica wants it, and like knows that she's like, it's kind of like he's sowing dissension in a way, right? Because he's being like, yeah, they're in charge, they're the bosses, like, this is stupid. And she would be inclined to agree with him. It's kind of like, when you work for businesses at work and
customer
you and the
care.
other coworkers undermine your managers, right? Like it's basically the same mentality. So it definitely feel like there was something there, but he's kind enough to be like, screw them, take the cake. Like I don't care about these raiders. They don't need jello cake.
They
They're just
don't
gonna
deserve
throw
it.
they're gonna just throw it against the window anyway. Like
Right.
there's no point. But Norm's curiosity is piqued because he's like, okay, then what happened in Vault 32 that this guy's not telling me? I need to know for sure. So he goes to his computer and he starts looking up stuff. And he's looking up stuff between Vault 33 and Vault 31. There's trades and there's medicine trades. There's something about like he couldn't get any farther, I think, because he's like got what is it? It says like error. There's like security protocols or something.
Access denied.
Yeah, his access gets denied. And then he starts looking up stuff about like Martin Johnson. He's seeing people like transferring over from Vault 33 to Vault 31. Apparently, that vault was having some issues. And despite their best efforts, they've been able to repair their internal system. They're exploring options, but then he can't see anything else there. So it's like, well, we saw that something went wrong, but like, what's happening?
Is that something that
And
the overseer would be in charge of, those like security protocols?
probably, right? The overseer has all those logins and he should be able to have those conversations. In fact, that's who they'd be talking to. And most of the vaults do have like a security force in them. So they could have like some other people that have access to those files. Maybe the council can look that stuff up, or maybe there's like a sheriff in the vault or something. But we haven't really seen it in this one.
Norm works with computers. We learned that last episode, though he lacked enthusiasm. But yeah, he works with computers, and like his dad being the overseer, he's probably knows a way to get access to those sorts of things.
So yeah, he's just delving through those records, but he can't get past a certain point. His access is denied. He's like, okay, well, if I can't find it via the computers, I guess I'll just go over there. The next scene is him knocking on a door, and the door opens, and it's Chet standing there, and Chet's still wearing the cardigan from earlier, and Steph is over on Chet's like couch. I loved how they cut this scene because they cut it from Norm's view. And so it's like Norm looking at Chet, and in the background you see like a couple Vault Dwellers helping out Steph give birth on his couch. And Norm's like, feel like getting out of the house? And Chet's like, yes. And Chet still has no idea what he's being asked to do. He just wants to get out of there. And they go over to the vault. Remember when they blew up that vault door? When they were exchanging?
Yeah.
And like when they took the overseer, they locked Lucy in the room and the other guys ran away. So when they blew up that vault door, they just were blowing up that vault door. So they weren't screwing over like the vault from getting out. They still had their exit, which we've seen earlier. But we were a little confused originally. Like, why did they blow it up? What did it do? It just blocked off Vault 32. That's all.
I think it was to keep them from coming after them because I think they exited the vaults through 32.
32. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just to keep them from coming after them.
Which I was under the impression, like when we watched that first episode and so many people like died and they had that huge fight, it seemed more like a massacre watching that first episode. But then it turns around and like, okay, no, the vault guys captured people and killed them. So I think it makes more sense that they were like, hey, don't follow us, and they blew it up. And being raiders, they didn't care that they left, 16 people behind, because why do you care?
You're Raiders.
So, Vault 32's door is just covered in rocks. And Norm's digging through the rocks, basically. And Chet's helping him clear the space. And Chet's whining because Chet, lost his job as the doorman, is all sad. He's like, well, one of the raiders said something was going up in Vault 32. Chet's like, well, this isn't fun for me. And Norm's like, well, why'd you come then? And Chet's like, well, I don't know. Because he still doesn't know who he is. Like, Chet's just adrift. He has no grounding. He doesn't know what he's doing. Doesn't know where he's going. He's just kind of along for the ride.
And you just wanted to get out of that situation with Steph.
Right. Right. He doesn't want to be in there having that lady scream on his couch giving birth. But Norm actually calls him out and he's like, I know why you came with me. It's because you're still in love with my sister. And when you're around me, it reminds you of her. And Chet's like, no.
That comment was so funny.
Right. It just calls her out. It calls him out for it. But they start climbing over the rubble. And Norm's like, listen, you gotta see, like, come on. And I think they break through, right? They like push some rocks and he's like, just keep coming, Chet. Like, you gotta see this. And so they both crawl through. They're seeing the dead crops. They made it into Vault 32. And it just seems weird, right? Like we heard rumors that there was maybe like a plague that went through and killed all the wheat. But it seems like the crops have been dead for a long time. And it seems like maybe something else was going on. A lot of them looked almost like burned in a way, right? Like some of the crops looked like,
or like it almost looks like the crops got some sort of disease
and like died hard. Like, I don't know. It just seemed weird.
It was just, they weren't just like dry dead. They were blackened dead.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think you made a good point to me earlier, Carissa, where we were talking about like Chet saying everything's wrong. Just a little sidebar.
Like, this is so wrong. Wrong,
right.
wrong.
Right, like wrong that they're going to Vault 32.
But wait, posing as Bert for Steph isn't wrong?
Wearing Bert's cardigan and having almost sex with
Listen, my man has needs.
Woman. My man has needs.
Man's adrift.
That's just in a crisis right now.
Yeah, he's adrift, exactly.
They're like, he's taking advantage of this
They're
poor
just
woman,
coping.
but
they're just coping.
She's taking advantage of him.
Yeah, let's be honest. Steph was going after him.
They're taking advantage of each other.
But yeah, so do you guys think of Vault back to the wheat and being dead and everything? Do you think this was a Vault-Tec experiment? Like, do we think they were supposed?
I would think a Vault-Tec experiment, but
oh my gosh!
But
put on your tinfoil hats.
But the truth is, like, you never know what your experiment is in the vault, and that's kind of the kicker. Because like some of the other vault in different vaults thought like some of the other people in the vault were like working against them by like playing like music that was like making him go like crazy,
insane. Yeah. Well, wasn't there one vault that had like they had the vault as its normal thing with people living in it, and then they had like a vault next to it, and that vault was studying the vault here and like doing those experiments, like playing the music and doing stuff. I think that was another vault in New Vegas actually. But
yeah, like the scientists lived there too, and the citizens were just like had no idea what was going on, and they'd go ask like the medical team, and they're just like, "Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, Chief," and they're just like, "Oh, all right then."
Guess we're fine. And then yeah, it was not fine.
The music thing makes me think of Squid Game for some reason.
Vaults are just all shady, every single one.
Yeah, there's only like the one vault where Vault City was made. That is literally like the only vault that you heard of as a success story, where they had
and that's
the GAC.
But even then, that vault only succeeded because they wanted the. Why do you think no other vaults opened and had a successful GAC ever since then?
Well, that we know of, right? Like this is the only vault that I think I can remember being fine, like and not having weird problems. Like even the vault that you escaped from in Fallout 3, like that thing was an experiment on like a totalitarian like government setup with like heavy military, right? Like where you have a bunch of guys working as the guards and everything and keeping people doing exactly what they're supposed to. And like, so yeah, the vaults kind of suck. But back to Vault 32, because we're trying to figure out what happened in here. They're walking around. They walk past the crops. It looks like it's set up very similar to their vault. where they got that open field.
Theirs looks just like like their vault.
They're wandering through the different levels and they're seeing dead people, right? There's like they head up to the administration area and there's literally like a dude that there's like a foosball table splattered with blood, and then it pans over and there's a dude that got stabbed through the chest by the foosball like stick. Like,
That's what it was. I couldn't
talk
quite
about
tell.
a brutal way to be killed in Fallout. Like, just to get impaled by one of those sticks. So it looks like they're killing each other, right? But then at the same time, there was like signs of suicide. Like one guy took a fork and like stabbed a toaster and killed himself.
But first, though, Norm, the guy that had the impaled by the foosball pole,
Mhm.
he flicks on that guy's Pip-Boy and sees that the last biosignal was detected 2 years ago.
So nobody's like
Yep.
basically Vault 32's been dead for 2 years. No life signs, 2 years. And they've been communicating. So it's kind of weird. Like, I feel like maybe if you had these vault neighbors, you guys would talk more, right?
Unless they're not supposed to.
But they talk just via email.
But even so, if nobody responds for 2 years, you wouldn't send someone over to be like, hey, is everything good? And maybe they did.
Well, who's to say that email's just not being like forwarded to like the person wearing the Pip-Boy on the outside world?
And they could be like Volt protocols saying you can't talk to each other.
Maybe. But the thing is,
Because in the first episode, they say that the overseer sent some messages saying like that they've been like having a hard time with like crops and stuff like that.
Yeah, because Overseer McLean is like, oh, I'm sorry to hear of Overseer so-and-so's passing. And the lady, who we thought was the now Overseer, was actually Moldaver, she's like, yeah, well, and the crop thing, too. And so, like, how long have the Raiders been hanging out in 32 to arrange this whole marriage swap?
right? Well, not
Because
only
McLean
that,
would have to have somebody to communicate with over there.
right? Well, and that's the thing is like, but the problem is McLean would know because he seems to know who Moldaver is. So how did he not know when they all pulled up for the wedding exchange and looked Moldover in the eyes that she was a raider? Like, how was he just like, yeah, this is fine, right?
Maybe she looks different.
Maybe McLean was in on it from the beginning.
This was all an inside job.
Or maybe Moldover, like he does know her from Vault 32. Maybe she was from Vault 32.
Maybe Moldover actually has leverage on him.
Yeah.
Doesn't she have Lucy's mom's Pip-Boy?
We haven't got there yet, but yes.
No, but I swear that's like that one, right? It's got to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's got to be something. They know each other. There's something going on. I want to know the mystery. This vault stuff is probably the most interesting of the whole series.
That's what I'm saying.
And usually I'm bored with the vault stuff, like unless I'm going and delving a dungeon.
But we're delving a dungeon.
We are. In this one, we get to find out 31, 32, and 33 what's going on in those vaults.
You're just
And maybe
looking at
more.
that vault as like pretty much an abandoned vault that you'd find just out in the wasteland.
Exactly. So it's like, what happened to Vault 32? Super curious. Yeah, we don't know what happened. Guys are killing themselves. Guys are killing other people. There's a documentary on a TV that's apparently been there for 200 years. And it's about like how mice will eat each other to live if their living situations deteriorate. So I think it's implying that
It's
the
a dog
wheat
world.
happened. It's a dog-eat-dog world, right? Like the wheat died, and so they ran out of food. So then everybody started killing each other and themselves. That's how we got to where we are with Vault 32.
But there's a famine in the other vault.
But that still raises so many questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions that be answered about that stuff, though.
Well, and to top it off, this scene basically ends with them they see all these dead bodies, and then they look over at the wall at one of the dead bodies, and in blood written on the wall is "We know the truth." So it's kind of like, what truth? Was the truth that Vault Tech poisoned your crops, or was the truth that
the experiments?
What experiment did they discover? What happened? Like, what happened?
They probably found. I'm assuming what they say is we know the truth is they probably found out what their experiment was of their vault.
That seems like it's got to be something like that. But what is it? What was the experiment? So, and how'd they discover it?
Crops dying, like, sure, that would cause definitely a little panic. With the vault, like, they could definitely, like, that could like not like easily still be like a big problem to like bust over a fight. To me, to go into a full fight, like everyone's like gonna be killing, like they
Killing
know
each
some
other
shit.
and
They know some
themselves.
shit.
Yeah. So just the crops deteriorating is not enough reason for them to start killing themselves and each other. There had to be something else.
Yeah.
There had to be something more.
And one side note thing I was gonna say is like as I've always played Fallout, and like every time I've stumbled upon a vault, it's always been cool to like try to figure out what happened in the vault. Like what was the experiment? What's going on? What happened?
Why are they experimental? Do they ever say?
In a lot of vaults, you can find out the reasons.
Oh,
Yeah, like
yeah, the lore is out there, dude. There's a series that I'm watching right now that came out a long time ago, and it's called The Storyteller. And he basically tells you lore of the entire Fallout universe. But for every vault that you have a quest in that you can go in and discover the lore, he tells you about it, and he tells you everything he knows about that vault, and like it's kind of cool. It's a really good lore series. So if you're looking for more Fallout lore, it's definitely worth watching, and it's done in a way that's entertaining. But the lore's out there. I don't think there's a lot of vaults that we like. If they've told us about a vault, or if we've gone into a vault, we pretty much know what the experiment was and how everything went down.
a lot of vaults I don't have a lot of lore on are like a lot of the like original vaults, like the Los Angeles vault and stuff like that.
From Fallout 1 and 2, yeah.
Because like we're playing in Los Angeles, and you'd think that the Los Angeles vault would be like something big to hear about.
And I mean, maybe I guess this one's more the oh my gosh, what's the name of the dock? It's the
Santa Monica.
yeah, this is the Santa Monica vault. So
But now we're
vaults,
walking.
three
But now
vaults.
we're walking around in Los Angeles too.
They're pretty close. It's like a day's walk, probably, if you're walking, if that.
Well, then Vault 13 is supposed to be outside of Los Angeles too, right? And there's a couple other vaults for the first game that are around there. And then there was
there's a lot of people
also
in Los Angeles. There would be probably a lot of vaults there.
is Necropolis LA or San Francisco?
San Francisco?
If I remember correctly, Necropolis was a vault where the door didn't close all the way, so it let a bunch of radiation in, and so they all became ghouls, and so they started like the City of the Dead, which was called Necropolis. I don't know. I got to watch more of my Fallout lore so I can remember all this stuff. But there's a lot. There's a lot in there. But okay. Well, that was our Vault 33 section. Now we're back to Lucy. Like I said, still no Maximus, and I'm pretty sure like Maximus doesn't show up the rest of the episode. So we've really stuck to Lucy and the McLeans, basically Lucy.
Like
and
I said, a
Norm.
lot of lore building with these two.
A lot of character building.
Because I'm really hooked on what's going on in the vault.
And I like that. I like that we're getting more in depth on these people, especially since Maximus ended on such a high note.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's interesting. There's mysteries about the ghoul, there's mysteries about the vaults. Lucy's going through her whole change, and Norm has to face what's going on in the vault. So it's definitely the more interesting part of the show. So back with Lucy, they're inside the supermarket. She'd been knocked out, and she's basically getting gurneyed by the Mr. Handy, and she's like passing this there's this poster there. And I couldn't tell if this poster was any of the games, Banana. You might remember it. It was basically a colorful neon sign, and it says Dairy Fresh Vanilla Ice Cream made in our own plant. And it shows like a cow with udders, and then there's some kids holding an ice cream container, and like the milk is coming out of the udders and going straight into the ice cream container. I feel like I've seen that poster in one of the games, but I just can't remember.
What was the sign? A Dairy Fresh?
Dairy Fresh Vanilla Ice Cream.
I thought the sign was funny. The milk like shooting out of it into the ice cream thing.
Yeah.
That definitely seems like very Fallout-y.
But you don't remember seeing it from one of the games?
No, definitely not.
Okay, well maybe I'm just crazy, but it definitely, yeah, it's so Fallout that I felt like it was part of the universe.
It's so Fallout because, especially with 76, they have a crap ton of billboards. I've never seen a billboard, so
it's true. And you had a lot of that. You built a lot of that. So, but anyway, so she gets wheeled past that, and she's kind of like woozy and waking up. I guess she's unconscious or whatever, but like she's So Snip Snip's wheeling her, and they pass like a section of freezers, and in each freezer is a ghoul, and they're like chained up inside all these fridges. And there's like some that are like freaking out. Some of them, there's one that was like, Martha, my name is Martha, which reminds you of like Roger from earlier, right? Roger was like, my name is Roger. So
One's like
Martha's,
holding a baby doll.
yeah, they just seem, they're obviously a little mentally broken, and they're all trapped inside freaking fridges. So it's not looking good for these guys, and they're all ghouls. Everybody that they have there is ghouls. So my first thought was like, are they going to turn Lucy into a ghoul
I've come to realize why they say their name.
to try and remind themselves that they're not insane?
Just to remember themselves who they are.
Yeah, because they're losing it.
Because they're
Yeah,
losing.
because they're literally going insane. It's like, who am I anymore?
But yeah, so they pass all these ghouls and stuff, and Snip Snip wheels the gurney over to these two guys who are sitting there like eating a cup of noodles and watching TV.
Lucy has a vision of her mom as she's waking up.
Oh, yeah.
Her mom's like calling for her. She's like, Lucy. And then like Lucy runs up to her and we see like little Lucy. Her mom's like, what are you doing out here? And there's like bright light.
So maybe they left the vault before?
Out here, they outside at some point? Like,
Wow.
So, I mean, I guess technically the radiation levels are low.
or is it just like a bright fluorescent light from inside the vault? I don't know.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That could be
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that.
then being out of the vault, because she's the phrasing, like you said, is very important, which is, what are you doing out here? Like, out here would be out of the vault. So, ooh, interesting. I like that. Maybe she's already been out and we don't even know. But yeah, Snip Snip pulls up to these two guys, and it's Huey and what's the other
Squirrel.
guy's name?
Huey and Squirrel. Yep.
Huey and Squirrel. These two dopes sitting on the couch. The Huey's definitely familiar.
He's been in a bunch of things.
He's been in some stuff.
He's
I
in
didn't
a lot of
recognize
stoner
Squirrel.
movies.
Yeah. And he's kind of that like chill couch
Derpy looking
potato
dude.
looking guy.
Imagine being cast as Couch Potato Guy.
He has made a role.
Could be a worse job.
Yeah.
The other
But-
guy's been in a few other things too. Nothing I personally recognized, but he seems like he would just be another like couch
Derpy
potato
dude.
character.
Couch Potato.
He's just sitting there eating a cup of noodles.
But yeah, Snip Snip pulls up to these two guys who are couch potatoing, eating ramen, watching cartoons. And he's all like, pardon the interruption. Our latest arrival has arrived. And they're like, oh man, like, what do they want for it, Snip Snip? And Snip Snip's like, 60 vials. And Huey's like, yeah, he like looks through his bag or whatever. And he's like, we could totally do that. That's fine. And Snip Snip's all like, fantastic. And Huey's, I just like doing the Snip Snip voice because it's Matt Berry, and I just like the voice. But anyway, Huey's like, oh yeah, do her now so she's ready for the next pickup. So what are they picking up actually? Like they talked about harvesting organs, but like who is actually like picking up organs and taking them
Who
places?
are their buyers?
Why is this such like an industry in the wasteland?
Body parts.
It's Moldaver. I
You
guess.
think so?
Sure,
That's
why
kinda-
not? She seems to be like the big bad in this area.
Like the body part
Well, there's
The
also the Enclave.
trafficking kingpin.
Yeah, it could be the. Well,
And
just
I bet
like
you the
she seems to be
Brotherhood
in
of
charge
Steel
all
might-
the crime. The Brotherhood
True.
of Steel.
I mean, the Brotherhood of
Oh.
Steel could want body parts to fix their soldiers, right?
But are they getting the? My question is, are they getting the vials from these people that are taking the organs? Like they're supplying the vials in return for the organs, and these guys are just the in between.
They've got to be just the in-between guys for something, right? It could be
If that's the
Vault-Tec,
case,
it could
then
be
I
the
can't see
Enclave,
Brotherhood-
could be
the Brotherhood
Moldaver.
is doing, like ghoul serum.
They'd just take it. That's true. They wouldn't have ghoul serum, so it couldn't be the Brotherhood. You're right. But anyway, I'm like, who is it? Who are these people that are coming for pickup? And they want to get her organs out now, meaning the people that are coming for pickup are on their way, which is an interesting to note. Keep in mind. So people are coming to pick up something. These two idiots are holding on to it. They have all these vials, and this is actually funny. Snip Snip's like, excellent idea as always, sir. And that's when Huey turns to the other guy and he's like, "Nice robot." Like, that's a nice robot.
It almost seems like Squirrel like just found him and was like, "Oh, I'll tinker, bring him back to functioning, and have him come work for us or something like that." And Huey's like, "Oh, nice find." Nice
right?
robot.
Like, had to convince Huey that the robot was fine, but it's weird because the other thing to think about is like, okay, if these guys are harvesting organs, right, and they're holding on to them for somebody, then why are the ghouls involved? Wouldn't the organs for these ghouls be too fried to give to anybody? Like, how does that even work? Because like they're ghoulified. So are you providing organs to other ghouls?
Maybe they're selling ass jerky in the back.
Well, they don't need right. Well, they don't need, or maybe they use the organs to create the vials. I don't know. It's weird because why would you be harvesting organs from ghouls that are just radiation, like walking radiation? It
Or
doesn't make any sense.
what if they're selling the organs for Lizard on a Stick?
For Lizard on a Stick.
That's
That's
what
their
they
other
need.
business on the other side of the Super Duper Marts, just a stand for Lizard on a Stick.
It's a food truck.
Yeah, it's just a food truck they got in the back. I don't know. It's weird. And it's weird that they're like they like the robot and it's funny. It's just kind of I don't know. It's cute in a way that like Huey and Squirrel have their pet
Nice
robot that
robot.
harvests organs for them while
While
they
they
watch
watch TV.
cartoons. Yeah, right? Like, okay. But yeah, so the Snip wheels are off and he's like making conversation with her and she's kind of like still groggy and not really saying anything, just kind of taking all of it in.
And his like the conversation he keeps asking, and he's like, "So where did you say you were from again?" And she doesn't respond, and he's like, sounds nice, never been. I hope to go there soon." And so he's like carrying
Repeating
on with
himself.
these like canned responses that are like
like
yeah, he
bedside manner or something.
he
Like
seems
programmed him.
but he seems a little fried.
wires loose or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just talking to her almost like she's getting a haircut or something, right? Like it's just making
Don't want
conversation.
to keep your associate waiting.
But yeah, finally they pull into the room and Lucy starts like struggling, right? She's like, "Hold on, I don't want you to take my organs." And she's like saying, "Don't do this. I need my organs. Like I need these to survive." And Snip's like, "Don't worry, it'll all be over soon. Like hold still, it won't hurt." And like meanwhile, one of his arms is now a saw. And like zzz, like and it's coming at her and he's like, "Don't worry about it." She's freaking out. She actually leans over to one side, and I think she like kicks his arm, the saw arm, and it hits her restraint, which I thought was super lucky, right? Like she's got to have
like
a
it could
high
totally
luck
got
skill,
her arm.
right? Could have cut off her arm, could have cut off anything, but it cuts the restraint that's holding her, and so she rips out of it. She gets off, and she doesn't really have any weapons, so she actually grabs a what's that called?
The resuscitation paddles.
Yeah, she grabs those resuscitation paddles, and of course, electricity is going to work on the robot, right? So she just zaps the crap out of the robot, and he's like saying a bunch of weird words and stuff, and he says, "There's no fudge here," and then like collapses.
She almost like as she's like electrocuting, she like almost smiles as she realizes it's working, and then it just like the ghoul's voice comes back into my head saying, "There's that little killer."
You think so? You think
When
there's,
she like I don't know, it almost
I didn't
like
see a grin, but
I mean, I would smile
and then
too
she
if
like
I got a
leans
big
into
medal.
it harder and like
you want to use those
puts
paddles
the paddles
sometime?
on her a little harder. I don't know.
I'm not going to be around Nick when the paddlers are around. He definitely
Well,
wants you.
don't be trying to like harvest my organs.
Listen, it won't hurt a bit. Just stand still.
There's no fudge here.
There's no fudge here.
That's great.
So then Lucy's like, she's defeated the robot, but she's like trying to figure out, okay, what do I do now? I need kind of a weapon. Those guys had guns. How am I going to get out of this? And she looks over and she sees a big glass bottle that says Abraxo Drain Cleaner. And she picks that up. She looks back at Snip, who's still kind of like mumbling stuff. He's like, "I am ever ready to serve," and stuff like that, just because he's like been just reset, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I'd never played the games before, so I hadn't really seen Abraxo, but I saw that and I was like, that sounds like a lot of different cleaners that I know. Abracadabra, Ajax, and Drano. So that
Yep.
seems like quite the concoction.
Right? It seems like they just took those three, mixed them together, which seems lethal.
Yeah.
The Broxo looks really good. I like how they really spot on in detail.
Looks exactly like it does in the game.
Just the labels, like all the boxes, the packaging, the labels, all of that, like so 60s, like that era before the bombs dropped, like
Mm-hmm.
that sort of graphic design. It's so cool. Like every little detail in there is like true to the time period. It's cool.
And what's nice about it too is they had to age all that stuff. So all the stuff they made, right? Even like the Ghoul's cloak and everything, like they had to take that item and age it as if it's been walking around for 200 years, right? And they did a great job. Like nothing seems out of place. Everything seems as it should be for the universe. All the labels, all the billboards, all the outfits. They did a really good job here.
It kind of makes me wonder if like at the filming studios, like IRL, if they have like rooms of like these are 60s props and they just have like 60s cars and 60s like themed merchandise and just like all this stuff, and then like they've got another studio with the like the 50s 40s, or like, you know, just like makes me wonder
Separated out.
if they've got like just collections of this stuff at movie
Oh, yeah.
studios.
Oh yeah, totally. The studios definitely hold on to that stuff because, like, and the actors, right? They always talk about actors like getting to take stuff. Well, I saw a video for this one where they're like, "Lucy, did you like Did they give you anything or did you steal anything?" And she's all like, "No, I didn't take anything. I should have taken a Pit Boy or something, but I didn't take anything." She's like, "Maybe season 2." But that just shows you they didn't let her take anything, right? They didn't want her to take anything because they want to hold on to those items in case they make something later. And they've already made it, so why would they make a new one? Like that's a money cost.
Yeah, well, especially like they're not done filming. The season 2 has been greenlit, so they're not going to give anything away quite yet. I think when they do
No.
give things away, it's usually when like the series is done, it's completed, they won't be filming it anymore, sort of a thing. And then like, I don't know.
Agreed. Like maybe at the end of like whatever how many seasons the show goes.
That, and if it's going to be like specific to your project, if it's like nobody else is going to make exactly this or going to need exactly this for another film, so here you go, it's yours.
Well, they could definitely do spin-off series of Fallout though. That's the
For
cool
sure.
thing is like they could start telling us stories all over the wasteland. They just have to not screw it up with the games. And
What
they're
is it
fine.
going to be, the Todd Howard produced Fallout spin-off?
Would have to be, right?
So I keep seeing clips actually where Todd Howard is like super impressed with all the detail they went to. So it seems like they talked with him, they got an idea of what they wanted, then they went and made everything, then they got Todd to come out because they were like I watched the interview and he was basically saying like, yeah, when they brought me on, I walked in and they had me sit behind the overseer's desk, and he's like, and I looked down and there was like some papers on there. And I just picked up the papers and started reading them. And one of them was like some, graphs of how the vault's doing and different stuff, like very detailed. And he's like, another one was like an overseer message from another overseer about something. Like, he's like, the amount of detail they put into it, he's like, you guys really went all out. Like, Todd was basically impressed when he got there with how much they had already done. So I think the advantage here is that although Todd was brought on as like maybe consultant, it was much more focused on the writers and the people that loved the project and were making the project, right? So I Todd might want to do more, but first and foremost, Todd's kind of a salesman, right? He hypes all of his games, he sells all of his games that way. As far as show goes, he can hype this. This is good. This delivered. I want him to hype something like
Let me
this.
tell you, I'd be okay with like with just the Brotherhood of Steel.
Just its own show. The Brotherhood of Steel.
Learning more about like the Brotherhood and everything like that.
Going through their history. Maybe go back to like when the Brotherhood was initially started, when the Wasteland first started being terrible, and how they like formed and everything. That could be cool.
They could do something.
They could do anything. And I think that's the point. But okay. Back to Huey and Squirrel sitting on the couch, Lucy's got she's got Mr. Handy, she's got Snip Snip, and she's got him all tied up with a cord around him like he's a hostage. And she goes, "Hands up, do as I say, and Snip Snip won't get hurt." And Huey's like, "It's a fucking robot." And then Squirrel's like, "You might as well be holding an air conditioner hostage." And then Huey's like, "Well, hold on. An air conditioner sounds nice, though." And Squirrel's like, "Yeah, that would be a big deal." Like, basically, if you were holding an air conditioner hostage,
We might be able to negotiate.
like, you'd have some more leverage. It's just so funny that, like, even though, like,
I like how the wasteland's still like gone over the crap, and they're like, I'd really like to have my hands on an air conditioner.
exactly, like, the wasteland's so kooky that, like,
Priorities, man,
they would
priorities.
kill for an AC unit. Like,
I still
it's
have
just
desire
good.
for luxury, even in the wasteland.
So Lucy's a
not
little
wrong with that.
frustrated, right? And she's like, "Well, doesn't she grabs the arm from Snip Snip, and remember we saw the Abraxo. So she points the arm at the guys and she says, like, "Yeah, that's why I put Abraxo draining fluid in these syringes." And she's like, "Snip Snip, what does the Abraxo do?" And Snip Snip goes like, "If you've got a clog that's full of Mach Trust Abraxo draining fluid to get it unstuck, it's very poisonous." Kind of like the candid line of like the salesman thing, and then like, "It's very poisonous, like it will kill you." Huey's like, "Okay, well, you can leave then, right? Like, you made your point, you can go, you can walk out of here." And Lucy's like, "No, not just me. I want you to release all those ghouls too." Huey's like, "Well, okay, you're the one with the weapon pointed at me." And he presses the button, and like 3/4 of the freezers open, and all those ghouls run out, and they're like, "Thank you," and they run out, right?
They're obviously not ghouls.
And Lucy's like, "Well, hold on, there's still more ghouls. I said all of them." And Huey's like, "You don't understand, like, we don't want to release those ones." And that's when she shoots the Abraxo on the couch, and it starts melting the couch.
And it's like
And-
acidic and starts turning green. It's just like,
Just
ugh.
melting the couch.
Yeah, what is Abraxo supposed to be? Is it like cleaning?
The
Yeah,
Powder?
it's
Drain-
supposed to be cleaning stuff.
drain cleaner.
Just like TooRissky said,
Braxa is more like it's like powdered bleach or something like that.
it's got to be like Drano, Ajax, and what was the other one?
Abracadabra. I think
and
abracadabra is
Abracadabra.
just more of like a surface cleaner, though. Ajax is a bit more harsh, and so is
I
Drano.
know what Drano does, but I didn't know what everything.
It's a cleaning concoction that you don't want to mess with. Don't get it in your eyes.
It cleans your drains, and I'm assuming you don't want it on your body.
Don't put it in your mouth.
Don't breathe this.
But yeah, so it disintegrates the couch. And this part's a little interesting. Like, Huey is obviously implying that these ghouls are not okay, that you do not want them released, that they might be a problem, right? I feel like instead of saying, like, "You don't understand," he should have been like, "Those ghouls are feral.
They
They will kill
eat you.
They will just kill you." And at that point, if she had fired it, I would have been like, "Okay, this is on you." But I feel like he didn't really put up a good effort, and like maybe he was just so scared that when she shot the couch, they just were like, "Okay," and they hit the red button.
Or maybe he was thinking like, because they have guns just like sitting there next to him. So maybe he was thinking like, we could probably take them.
I'm assuming he was like, "Your funeral."
You think so?
Yeah, maybe he's hoping the ghouls would attack Lucy.
But yeah, he just doesn't protest enough.
I
It
don't know.
seems like
They
before he
obviously
presses the
don't
button.
seem that smart.
Yeah.
And from what we can tell, there's a bunch of drugs and drinks around, and they're chilling here watching cartoons and eating cup of noodles. So like, it's not like there's a high brain power going on. But they hit the button, and it releases the other ghouls, and they do this kind of like slow opening of the things, like of the doors, and you see on the door there's a label, and it says Ghoul organs, 500 caps, 300 caps, whatever. But that's all crossed out, and all you can read actually is it says feral organs, 100 caps. So these ghouls are feral, and they immediately stumble out of the freezers and they start snarling, And then they start. Lucy's like, "Oh crap! Wait a second, I screwed up." And she pushes Snip out in front of these ghouls, but these ghouls start running at them. And Huey and Squirrel actually do get up and start shooting at them. And they catch the first one. They definitely catch the first one, but the next two, one of them gets on Squirrel and tackles him over the couch, and the other one gets all up on Huey, and they're fighting and stuff. And they start popping off shots, and it's just not going well. And Lucy's trying to figure it out. And the Martha Ghoul lady is over there still cowering. And they definitely got Squirrel. Like, that one ghoul definitely got Squirrel. But I think
There's a
Huey
lot of
shoots
blood.
that one.
He does.
And yeah, Huey shoots the one that's on Squirrel and kills it. But I think it's too late for Squirrel. I
Yeah.
think he got his throat ripped out. And then actually, Huey's fighting with the ghoul that's on him. And it looks like the ghoul bites his neck and like tears. But as he's doing that, Huey shoots the ghoul in the head. So they like kill each other.
Well, it doesn't even look like Huey, because I was looking at this pretty closely when I was taking the notes. It looks like Huey turns the gun on himself, and the blast is big enough to kill both of them.
I think that's just sloppiness. I don't think he was trying to kill himself. I
Okay.
think he was trying to kill the ghoul. Because I also, like, I saw your note on that, so I went and looked, and it does look like the ghoul bites his neck and, like, rips his throat out when he shoots him. So it's kind of like at the same time they kill each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Huey and Squirrel are dead. The short parts, pretty quick. They're done. And it's just Lucy there. The ghouls are dead, and she looks over, and there's just the one ghoul left. And it's the one that's like, "I'm Martha. Martha, my name's Martha," right? And she's like
She's
slowly
not even
walking
saying
out.
it like weird. She sounds like she's got like
Martha.
curly hair, and she's
My
like,
name is
Martha.
Martha.
My name is Martha, and she's like normal, and like so Lucy feels like maybe there's some hope.
Humanity
For
in her,
her?
right? But she's still coming towards Lucy, and Lucy's like, "Hey, chill out. I know there's someone in there.
And she keeps
Talk
having
to me."
those like feral like
Blah.
yeah,
the,
like bursts of
What is
Well,
that
she's
from?
also trying to stop from doing, I think, what the other the ghoul had to do, which was kill him because she doesn't want to become like
Put him down. Yeah. But yeah, she's trying to be like, "I know you're in there," but she's not. And Martha can't resist her feral urges and lunges for Lucy. Lunges like a long ways. It reminded me of the games when like one of the ghouls is running at you and like yeets its body at you.
yeah, it was quite a jump.
Yeah, dude.
And like, right, just Martha leaps at her, and she ducks down, grabbing a gun, and shoots Martha in midair. And yeah, that was Lucy's real like first kill in the Wasteland, where it was someone that was like not quite like she didn't
Like
want to kill this
Wilzik
person.
doesn't count because he had already taken a cyanide pill.
he was already dead.
Yeah,
This was like her first real kill.
but yeah, so jumps. Lucy kills it. Snip actually leans over to, like, it doesn't lean over, but like Snip says, "Pardon me, madam. Could I help you have a better day?" And Lucy goes, No, thank you." Which is funny because she like maintains her manners and everything and like says no thank you after having this horrific event where she had to kill this lady who was like on the verge of insanity and watch these other guys' throats get ripped out. And Snip's just so Fallout, so just like wacky, completely different from what you expect. But she's ever the optimist, and she wanted to make sure that Martha was, maybe Martha could have been okay, but
Nope.
no, she's continuing to face that hard fact that the Wasteland is not a nice place.
No rainbows, lollipops, and daisies here.
Nice song quote.
I think I got it totally out of order, but thanks.
Close enough.
How long is that?
It's like the
Sunshine, lollipops, and
rain,
rainbows.
mhm,
Everything
yeah.
that's wonderful. So, yeah.
Just the Fallout vibes, basically. But okay. So Lucy's defeated all those guys. She's defeated the ghouls. She's basically released the people. It's kind of like a good adventure with a little bit of a sour ending, but she technically
Came
won.
out on top.
Exactly. So now back to Norman Chet. So we're back in Vault 32, and they're still exploring. They come into a room where a bunch of people are like hung. So we're still finding people that are dead, and it's Chet's like, it's safe to say I think they went bananas.
You don't
Which is
say.
it's kind of like that 50s, like that, old timey kind of like
Golly gee,
way
they
of saying
went
things,
bananas.
right? Like okie dokie, like that whole thing. The vault's just still like that. And Norm's kind of like cool, right? Like they went bananas, but how'd the Raiders get in? So they keep pushing past it, and there's a notice that says like death to management on the
Or
walls.
it's another bloody writing on the wall.
Right, more bloody writing that says like they death to management.
The last thing.
Which also makes you wonder about that. Like, did they discover the experiment?
Something, right? Like,
And we're like, the management has been behind this?
Like the overseers like knew what was going on, and that's what they're saying.
That's my guess.
Like-
They always know what's going on.
but Chet's like not convinced. He's like, dude, these people are just crazy. They probably just opened the door and welcome the Raiders right in. And Norm actually finds a computer with the vault door logs, and he says, actually, it was opened from the outside. And Chet's like, that's impossible. They need a pit boy to open the door. And Norm's like, they had one. And Chet's like, well, who was it? And it was Rose McLean,
What?
my mom, is what Norm says. So Rose McLean's been outside and somehow opened up that vault from the outside, or her pit boy at least did. So what happened? What happened to Norm's mom? What happened to the McLeans? What happened to 32?
When they meet Roger, like after the ghoul killed him, Lucy's telling him about the plague, how it, like, a lot of people starved to death,
Wiped out people.
including my mom. So she thinks her mom died in the plague.
So I don't think it was a plague. Here's what I think happened. I think that they knew about Raiders before, right? So they had some instance, they opened the doors to see if it was livable, and something happened. They met some Raiders. Maybe those Raiders killed a bunch of the people, so they called it a plague to kind of hide it from the people that didn't come out, right? To keep them sane. They lost all those people, and maybe that her mom was one of them. It got taken from her, the pit boy, by Raiders. And then they went over to they found the entrance to the other vault, I guess, opened it up. But I think it had to be that. I don't think there was actually a plague. I think the plague's a cover up.
Yeah, but that's what Lucy believes.
Is that there was a plague.
Yeah, because that's what she called it.
Yeah.
The Great Plague of 77.
Well, there was a plague in their place.
They had to, like, quarantine and they couldn't work the fields together and stuff like that.
But I'm thinking that plague could have been like planned kind of thing.
Right,
too.
like stay inside. I don't know.
Like, everybody go to your rooms so that we can do our questionable business while you guys are, quote, quarantining.
Locked up.
Yeah, and I mean that's just the question.
Yeah.
How connected are these vaults to the wasteland? They seem a lot more connected than we realize. But
as far as dating, is Lucy, was she alive during that plague, or was that before?
I mean, she had to have been alive.
because her mom died in it.
Yeah, and Norm had to have been alive too.
Right. So, well, and that's why you got that flashback from earlier where like she was like, what are you doing out here? Right. Like I honestly didn't think about that before. So honestly, that point's super great. But there's definitely like something going on. She just doesn't remember because she was too young. Right. Or blocked it out. Something happened. But speaking of Lucy, we're done with the Norm part. They found out that basically the mom's pit boy let him in, but we're back to Lucy and she's exiting the Super Duper Mart. Got some blood on her, but she's kind of got like a new look, a new boot because she had lost her boot to the Gulper. She's got some weapons and she's got leather armor from the game where it's got like the leather shoulder pad and it's strapped over her. And she walks out and she's looking all badass and she sees the ghoul still on the ground. And she walks up to him with a handful of vials and says, so you don't get these, you turn into one of those? That's how it works. He gets that she's implying that the ghouls, right? And so he weakly nods. She squats down to him and she says, listen, I may end up looking like you, but I will never be like you. And then she gives him the vials and says, golden rule, motherfucker. And then walks away.
That's actually the first time Lucy swears. And I was like, I don't care about swears so much, but like this whole time she's been using her golly gee, oh gosh darn sort of a thing. And it's like
Okey-dokey.
Reminiscent of her
Fudge.
character changing of like, oh golly gee to golden rule, motherfucker. Like,
I think it's more like she's making
She's
her
adapting.
own monster of the wasteland.
Yeah.
Like, what is she going to be in the wasteland? This is who she is. She's still going to abide by this rule.
yeah.
Now, the question is, how far does it go? Does she get to the point where it, like, she's a little twisted with it and like the ghoul who cuts off the finger to match the finger being bitten off? Or what does she do? But I just thought it was kind of a cool stick it to the ghoul, like, screw you, golden rule, I'm saving your ass. I expect you to do the same later kind of deal.
So you think the ghoul's gonna end up being friendly, or
I
whatever
think so.
his version of that is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
Ghoul will
he's
probably
got.
be turned around the most.
Yeah, I don't think he's like all terribly bad. Cause like, yeah, he was treating her like shit this whole time, but he's doing her a service by like exposing her. You gotta come to terms with some things out here in the wasteland.
Like teaching her lessons.
If you want to survive out here, let me teach you some things.
Let me cut off your finger.
Let me cut off your
You got your own problems out here,
Well, and it's
sweetheart.
very interesting because I feel like they're really pushing the morality of all these characters right now, right? Like, you see Maximus doing stuff where he's lying, but he's doing things for good. He's rescuing people, so he's kind of morally gray. And you see Lucy. Lucy's more positive, but she's becoming more morally gray, right? I would still say she's like a good person, but she's going to have to make sacrifices. And that's kind of what the Wasteland's doing to her. And then you look at the ghoul, and he's bad, right? Everything's shaped him to be bad. But now he's meeting someone who's complete opposite of him. And there's like some evening out going on, right? There's something going on here where I think they'll all end up more morally gray at the end of this season than anything else. Lucy will still probably lean more towards good, Ghoul more towards bad, but they're all evening out, I would say.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the ghoul has started shifting that way just yet. He's still pretty bad.
He hasn't shown anything to do it, but I think this next scene just really pulls it in. So let's move on. She drops those files. She says golden rule and she dips out. Now we're back to inside the store, and there's guts all over the place, and like right, the battles happen, and the ghoul stumbles in. So obviously he picked up the vials, he took his hit, and he's feeling better. He's inhaling vial after vial. He's just downing that stuff. He's looking for alcohol. He's grabbing the drinks that Huey and Squirrel had. He's downing those. He's grabbing pills. He's eating those. He's hitting the things. He's doing the drugs. Man is on a mission. There's like a paper with like lines of cocaine on it or whatever, and he just starts licking all of it up. He's squirting syringes like straight into his mouth. Like, the guy just has goals.
He knows what he wants.
He's in heaven for himself.
My homie's like, I'm about to be addicted to every single damn drug in this.
Right. He's got to have the party boy perk where he can just like go add all those and it's not a problem.
He just has every addiction.
Yeah, he just can't get addicted, or is already addicted, I suppose. But he even like turns to the dead guys and he's all like, I'd love to share this with you, but you weren't invited to this party. And like, he's like doing the drugs. And then he sees the TV. He walks up to it. And I don't know, this was kind of an interesting scene because he like drops his hat of drugs. And I just thought it was kind of an interesting commentary on the wasteland where like he was picking up those drugs because he needs them and he's going to obviously carry them with him, but he doesn't care enough to like not put them down gently.
There's more back there in that freaking little crate full of them.
Sure, but like,
why didn't he just take the crate? Why was he
he's
piling his
immortal.
hat full of them?
Right, that's the thing. He's immortal, so he's able to hold on to these forever. Maybe he's just planning on clearing out his hat and then taking the rest with him. So he's just gonna.
I guess he really doesn't have a way to carry all of them.
Yeah, he'll just store it and come back.
Well, and besides the bounty to get the drugs to survive, like, what's the point of what he's doing? He's just existing.
What's your end goal, Chief?
Like Lucy
Right?
asked him, "What's the point?
What's
Why
the
do you
point?"
keep going?"
And obviously, drugs is his motivation here.
I like drugs.
So he notices the TV and he grabs a tape, I think, and it's called The Man from Dead Horse. And he puts it in the TV. And the TV, I thought this was cool. It's called the Radiation King TV. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Yeah,
it's
I
got,
thought that
like,
was cool.
Everything's like radiation, and it's just reminiscent of how they used all the nuclear power before the bombs dropped and how radiation was like in everything.
Wait, that TV's running on nuclear power?
Exactly.
Like the atomic 50s futuristic style. It's really cool.
Exactly. So it was kind of cool. He puts in the movie, and it turns out it's the movie from episode 3 that he was the cowboy in. And it's that same scene where, like, there's an old Mexican eulogy. Fuego fuerte y formal. Means he was ugly, strong, and had dignity. Well, Joey, I'll give you 2 out of 3 on that front. But in this movie that we're watching, remember, he stops. He doesn't pull the trigger and he says, do I really got to kill him? But in the movie he's watching, he pulls the trigger, he kills the guy, and says, I hope you like the taste of lead, you commie son of a bitch. So he does it. Something happened eventually where they convinced him to just kill the guy and no longer be good. So it's kind of like he was losing who he was as a hero before the bombs even dropped.
Sidebar, I like that even in like an old Western movie, they made the bad guy
The commie, the communists, right? Like
Everyone was a comic.
Every bad guy's
if you're a commie, you're done. You Cadillac Dave,
50s propaganda.
Cadillac Bob, whatever that guy's name was.
Yeah, Cadillac Bob.
Or how do we get rid of him? Easy. He's a commie. Oh, that's it.
What I also found interesting about this part was they show the ghoul's face. He's watching this movie. Almost to me, it looks like he's kind of disgusted or almost like kind of like ashamed or like, wow, what did I do? Like he's remembering back when he did say no. That he did say, like, no, I won't kill you. Because I think you'd remember that scene as an actor, even if it'd been 200 years.
Totally.
Obviously, he stopped it right before he killed someone. A big pivotal moment for his character in that show. It's like he was reminded of who he was. That at one point, he didn't just want to kill things and, like, didn't care about life. At that one point, he was a better man. And that's why I'm saying I think the ghoul is going to turn not completely good, not even completely neutral, but he's going to do a few things that are a little bit nicer, right? Like she said, golden rule gave him the stuff. I feel like he's going to show up and he's going to help Lucy at some point. Because what's the point now? He's got all the drugs he needs, so it's not like he needs to go get the bounty. That would just be to get the money. So the only reason he would go back is to help Lucy. He has no other ties to this thing besides greed, but he already has everything he would need to survive for another 200 years.
Right, like I would just move in the Superdome. I'm like, well, this is my new home now.
Right? Why not?
Well, you got the buyers showing up soon too, so he would have to deal with those guys.
Oh, they just kill
Good
them.
point. I almost forgot, right? Like I mentioned that earlier. I was like, this is important for later. Those buyers are on their way. Squirrel and Huey are dead. The ghouls are all dead or escaped, so there's nothing to pick up. The robot's, out for the count. Are the buyers going to show up and the ghoul's going to be there? And he's going to be like high as balls and like try and deal with these guys? Or like, what's going to happen?
I don't know. Could even just be that he moves on and we don't see any of that.
Yeah, he'll leave. He's smart enough not to stick around, right?
You think so? Because he sat down to watch a movie and pick up a bunch of drugs.
I mean, he's also high on drugs.
Well, he's probably couch locked at that point.
Yeah, I mean, guy just did everything possible in like 5 steps.
Don't do this
Literally
at home.
picked up everything.
Ever.
Yeah. But yeah, that was episode 4. Really good episode, I thought. I enjoyed myself. A little bit shorter runtime than the other episodes, but I didn't feel like it was rushed.
I didn't feel like I missed out either.
No, I feel like they pretty much covered everything that we needed to cover. So, with all that in mind, let's go ahead and move into final ratings, and we are going to start with Snickerer. Episode 4, The Ghouls. What'd you think?
I really like this one. Even taking away the focus from Maximus and focusing more on just the 2 stories going on,
Mm-hmm.
I think the vault, all the stuff that they're revealing about what went wrong and how messed up stuff at Vault 32 was super interesting. And then the play between Lucy and the ghoul and him constantly pushing her and cutting off her finger, just being really a bad guy. And then her coming to terms with the fact that she's probably gonna have to be a little bad to survive and have to do stuff she doesn't want to do. I'm gonna go ahead. I'll give this one a 10. I really like this one.
10 out of 10. I think that's
Yeah.
the second episode you've given a 10 out of 10, huh?
Well,
Yeah.
it's been 8, 10, 8, 10. So it's
And this guy doesn't even like Fallout.
even like
So
Very
10 out of 10. Great character development. Good storytelling. Didn't miss the Brotherhood of Steel at all. All right, TooRissky, what do you think? What's your rating? What do you think about the episode?
This was a really good episode. A little bit slower than the previous episode. There was just a lot going on last time when they were all like trying to get after the head and the gulper. It was just, there was a lot going on. So it felt a little bit slower, but I still really don't have any complaints here. There's a lot of character building and I love good writing for characters. So they did that really well. And I think it's really, really cool and fascinating to see like the changes that these characters are going through and the mystery of the vaults unfolding. And it's really good. I can't give every episode a 10 out of 10 though.
Some people can.
Some people can. Well, so far it's only every other episode. But
we're good.
What's your rating?
I would probably say 9 out of 10. It just felt a little bit slower. I don't know.
Okay.
It was still really good.
9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Baked Banana, Fallout Guru. What was your rating of episode 4, The Ghouls?
I really liked it. Really no complaints out of me from this one. I liked just learning a lot about what was going on in the vaults. I found that really intriguing, so I really didn't mind that Maximus and Thaddeus weren't around. Thaddeus is cool.
You guys thought I was crazy for liking Thaddeus.
I still think you guys are crazy for liking
I
Thaddeus.
thought it was a weird pick.
Such a
And,
derpo.
I mean, I like Rico too. And Norm.
Oh, Norm. You keep calling him Rico.
Yeah, really.
Hannah
no.
Montana is just ingrained in my childhood, okay? And Brad's too, apparently.
Right. Funny sidebar. Freaking Norm and Chet. Norm is like the shortest person in that vault, and Chet
Oh
is
my
like
gosh,
the tallest person
the
in that
height
vault.
difference of the two of them
Right.
is so
When
funny.
they were walking around together and the height difference was there, it was just so comical. Like, and you know they did it on purpose. But anyway, go ahead, Baked Banana. Final rating.
Go ahead, Banana. But I do have another thought on that.
Yeah, solid. I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. What could have made it a 10 for you? Like,
Nothing. I just can't give everything 10 out of 10s.
I draw a line somewhere.
Seems
feel
to be a
that.
theme. But you were saying TooRissky about the difference in height?
Yeah, so like there's that difference. And I think Moses, I think his name is Moses Arias or something like that. I think he is short in general, but I was also looking when I was editing episode 3, when Norm meets with the council,
Mhm.
table angles look kind of weird. And so I was almost thinking like it was some sort of a, you know how in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf is in the Hobbit hole and they had to do that whole like position Gandalf closer to the camera and the hobbits further away so that you can see that like size difference.
Like, are they trying to make him
It
smaller?
almost seemed like that. I'd have to show you guys the pictures to show you what I'm talking about. And maybe you can say like, no, it doesn't look like that at all. But like, I don't know. It just kind of seemed like that. They were doing some like positioning, like smoke and mirrors, like magic.
Possibly, because I don't think he's that much smaller than Chet. Like, they make it seem like he's like half the size of Chet.
Right.
Like,
I think they're trying to make Norm look a lot younger than he actually is.
yeah, because isn't he like 30 something? 40
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, he's like 30s. But they kind of paint him to be Lucy's younger brother.
Yes.
Which is funny because Lucy is our age.
Yeah, and Lucy definitely doesn't look 30. But
Right.
anyway, side tangent.
Okay. Okay, cool. So we got 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10. My rating is... I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10. Now, I think this episode was fantastic for character building. I think this episode was fantastic for its locations, the Super Duper Mart. I think it was fantastic for its, like, the, you know, Mr. Handy. I did think it was a little slow. Like, watching it through the first time, I was riveted. Watching it through the second time, I was definitely like, I don't know. I like that it wasn't rushed. I didn't want him to rush it, but I did feel like there was still like, there's just something going on with this series and its pacing. It's just slightly off. And I think it has to do with the time continuity and how long stuff actually takes. But that's kind of like Fallout 2, because technically you can fast travel places and have things happen faster than normal. So there was that, and there's always kind of that for me for some reason. I don't know. It's like, it's itching something. Maybe I'll be able to explain it.
It's still confusing.
Yeah, like the timing is still just kind of weird. Like, how long did the ghoul lay there before he came inside? How long is it before those people come and show up and the ghoul's sitting there doing drugs? How long did it take Lucy to actually do everything that was inside? What, like, you know what I mean? How long did it take them to get through all those rocks to get into Vault 32? They walked around Vault 32 pretty quickly, but because they showed it like every other scene, I think it played out a little bit better. I think the only thing is, like, the last episode was pretty great and they crammed a lot of the stuff in there. I wonder if there was something cut here for Maximus, because this, like I said, this episode was 20 minutes shorter than the last ones. So they probably could have put in like a couple scenes with the Brotherhood of Steel still, or showed us something from the Enclave, or
They've done some pretty short like scene inserts too in previous episodes. So like 20 minutes of screen time would be plenty for Maximus this
to
episode.
tell a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are they doing? What are Maximus and Thaddeus doing? Last we saw them, they had gotten ahead and were celebrating. So maybe even just a quick scene to show them trekking back. Or I guess they don't want to cross that bridge yet, because now we got to, like, Maximus is a liar. Now they got to confront that. Now they got to figure, you know what I mean? So
He's got to figure out who Maximus is.
I think we'll see in the next episode, right? Like, we'll see something that goes on, and maybe it just fits time-wise better over there. But I think that would be my only complaint. It's really hard to find something wrong with these episodes, guys. This show is fantastic. we haven't had a good show for a hot minute, and it being about video games and Fallout,
I like Fallout.
it just makes it that
It's like
much better.
extremely well done and stays
High
true to
quality
the source
Source
material.
material.
Like
As a Fallout
having
lover.
both of those is
This is okay.
not very common. And it's refreshing to have that finally.
I got one thing left too.
What do you got?
So Huey, Maddie, Carterlope,
Constantinople?
Arteropal or something like that. Yeah, he's got a funky last name.
He was apprenticed under Luke, Owen Wilson's younger brother.
Luke Wilson? Like acting
Yep.
apprentice?
Yep.
That's cool. I've never
Interesting.
seen Luke in anything.
I didn't even know Owen Wilson had a younger
Or
brother.
at least that I know of. Now I'm going to have to go
He's
look.
got 2 younger brothers, dude.
Are they just him? Are they just clones of him?
They look like slightly off versions of him.
Slightly off versions. They're the ones with the not crooked noses.
Brother
Right.
Luke looks like a very generic looking Tom Cruise.
Random.
If we're just spitting out facts here, David Register, who plays Chet, is 6'3",
Damn.
and Moises Arias, who plays Norm, is 5'1".
He's shorter
Okay,
than
so
I
it's just
am.
legitimate. No, that is legitimate, like how we're seeing them.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
man. Yeah, it's funny. Good casting, kind of funny how they did that, but... Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming. That was episode 4, The Ghouls, our breakdown. I feel like we're taking longer every week because we just have more and more to say and more to pick apart, but stick with us. We're halfway through. Thanks for coming. Like, subscribe, ding that bell for the next video. We're trying to release these every Monday. We're avoiding spoilers left and right. If you feel so inclined, join the Knights of Rent. Show us that support for the channel so we can get this stuff out even faster. We would have loved to just do an episode a day for you, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of work. So support us however you can. Thank you once again. And become the best you can be. Become a feral ghoul. I don't know about that one.
A Brotherhood Knight.
Well, there's no
Roger.
brotherhood in this episode. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
become
Roger.
Roger or Martha. Believe it.
Cape Sword.